could be the chance for Stoll. He's gaining, he's gaining, he's gaining. He's not going to split them on the middle. He's done it.
He's going on board with John Leon. Leon's going to connect. He comes off the inside. There's no one, and he's going to spin it. He tried his best. How did he catch it? John Chemistry.
Good morning, afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the Champion Motorsports 60 laps of the Glen running for VWSC. I'm Ross Smith, kicking things off, and with me in the booth today is the venerable Jake Sanson. How you doing, Jake?
I am doing great. It's great to be back with you guys once again after the 4.8 hours of Le Mans last week. I am still raring to go for more Virtual World Sports Car Championship. And what a better American circuit to do it at than the Glen. It is the epicenter of New York motorsport. Wonderful to be here, and great to see the cars out on track doing their thing. It's going to be a really exciting battle from Virtual World Sports Car Championship, if last week is anything to go by, and still plenty of great motor racing action to come, Ross. Who do you fancy for this one?
Well, I'd hope it to be me, but obviously there's... I'll have to hop off and get going here with our new cars. We're actually in the entire Storm Riders Racing has switched from the Valkyries to the Jescos, so that should be very interesting. But at the top of the field, Luca Gray, who's kind of new, he's been running with a lot of the stock car stuff in the world of rFactor 2. He's shown to be very fast, obviously with the 130 at the very top of the charts in his Toyota GR010, and then Ben Borman, of course, right behind him, but he's been having some technical issues, so it could be more of the same for the season. And of course, Daniel Kirby, no slouch either. But yeah, and the AMs, it's all up in the air. Could be any one of those guys who are up in the top there. Jerry Chen having some struggles, but I think he'll still be very much a contender. And down the GTs, Aiden Coleman coming in. He's new and fresh into the season. He started in the Indy test race and hasn't been able to come back for other commitments, but he's going to try and run out the rest of the season. He's very quick, as is Chris Brew, Cameron Barker. I mean, and of course, Brandon Gant. Like, all those guys are going to be up there. I think you're going to see Brandon probably bubble up towards the front just as he did before. And can't leave George out, but he's got a lot on his plate. And in GTMs, I don't even know, because it's such a toss-up. I didn't see Matt Boos in there. Tom Lane, he's going to be strong. Zolecki, if he can actually keep his computer connected this time, then he'll be in there. Yeah. So yeah, it's going to be fun.
Certainly is. Well, I'm going to let you get on. Obviously, you have a race to run, so thanks, Ross, for stopping by and opening up the show. Good luck to the Koenigsegg Jesco. Hope it's a good one.
Thanks. Good luck, guys, and have fun.
Oh, we certainly will. It's Glen, so why wouldn't we? So it's definitely going to be an interesting one from the outset here. And obviously the competitors are going to be trying to deliver something quite special. Hopefully my dear colleague and the voice of Dubai Autodrome, Chris Milbourne, will be joining us very shortly indeed. Looks like it's going to be a really exciting battle here at the Glen. 60 laps, plus the additional formation lap, of course. And as Ross intimated, it's definitely going to be interesting from the outset here, because we have several competitors who are going to be charging away things from the outset. There are 12 cars registered in Hypercar for this one. Norm Graf in his Ferrari FXXK Evo, the McLaren Senna GTR, returning Francesco Concas, who we saw obviously last time out at Le Mans after a season-long hiatus. The Aston Martin Valkyrie is still being raced by Gilles Lalonde. So Gilles Lalonde is going to be there in the mix, the Canadian for the Contact Racing Aston Martin Valkyrie. The Race 4 Cat Motorsports Valkyrie is going to be there for Mikel Ramos after his absence at Le Mans. The Rookie Monsters Pagani, well, Walter de Bruyn is always going to be a factor up at the sharp end of the field, so we'll see if he can come out of the blocks. Then we have 3 CMS Pro Bugatti Bolides for Ernest Bernaldo, John Ian, and of course, Daniel Kirby. We'll also have the Storm Rider Racing team, which has obviously already been the big talking point coming into this one. Gone are the Aston Martin Valkyries. In are the Koenigsegg Jescos. In Hypercar Pro, it's Ben Borman and Jason Whitehead. And in the AM, it is, of course, Ross Smith and Guillaume Benchke. So that will be interesting to see what they can deliver this time. The 360 Motorsports GR010 Toyota of Luca Gray, as we've already mentioned, is definitely going to be one to keep an eye on. As, of course, as always, is the Hall Brothers Lamborghini SCV12 of Ryan Hall, the Hall Brothers car. And then obviously, as well as the Koenigsegg Jescos of the Storm Rider Noons of Ross Smith and Guillaume Benchke, we'll also have the Acurin Mistral Lamborghini, ever present, of Eric Moyne, and we'll have the Flying Kiwi Lambos of Jerry Chen and Matthew Overton, the Kiwi and the Canadian. In GT, well, it's pretty much the usual suspects. 8 cars running in the GT category. The BMRS Esports Chevy Corvette of Vinicius Gonçalves, and the similar car, the 360 Motorsports car of Luca Bray. I think he's only deciding to choose one or the other, and he's gone for the Toyota in the hypercar category, so that one will be sitting out. The HPD Acura, 2 cars for the Greek George Angelidis and the Canadian John Mayer. The SRA Nismo GT3 of Brandon Gant, the Pedigree Racing BMW M6 of Cameron Barker, and Alicio Neto, the Brazilian, in the Visceral Esports R8 LMS. And then, of course, in GTM, we've got 2 independents. Ed Jones in his McLaren 720S, the Porsche 911 GT3R of Peter Mayer. We also have James Bowders in his version, actually, so 3 independents in total. The Pazuzu Porsche of Eugene Mazur, as always, going to be an interesting one to watch for. The Stardust Autosports Vantage of Jamie Zalewski. Yes, fingers crossed. Hope we can get it all the way to the end this time without a systems reboot. Coastal Coots Mustang of Tom Nacella. The Recab Sim Racing Ferrari of Alexander Model, the German. Then Manta Squids Mustang for Tom Lane. The Luna Racing Vantage of Dean Sheesby. We'll see the Scuderia Pre-Alpina Ferrari of Filippo Marazzi. The Reptile Bentley, that's going to be Craig Dams once again. And then the Trash Panda Lambo of Mike Boyce. He's going to be in there along with his good colleague Matt. So Matt and Mike Boyce will again be out in the 98 and 99 Trash Panda Lambos. The Recab Sim Ferrari of Stian Kjovard. And then the final car in is the Speed Details McLaren of the Canadian Stephen Miller. So obviously the drivers getting themselves up to speed and familiarising themselves with the cars and the circuit. The Watkins Glen 60 laps. It's going to be a very interesting start to things as we get ourselves into the mix. But Watkins Glen always delivers fantastic action and drama, a great race circuit for overtaking and pushing cars to their absolute limits. Quite short circuit by comparison to some of the others in the mix, but that's definitely going to provide us with a lot of talking points. And of course, the big question is how many cars are going to brush with disaster up against those walls. They are very close, very near in, so obviously things will get very spicy from the outset as the drivers are wanting to get themselves into the best possible position. We're riding on board as we go around the Glen. You can really get to see just how quick and how rapid these hypercars are as they shoot in, and there's a big speed differential around here with these hypercars in particular because you don't have a lot of room to fool around it. It's a bit like a Danish winter. It's cold in the wintertime and you don't get out anything you can't get back in. It's very tricky over the course of this Watkins Glen circuit once again, as drivers are going to be pushing themselves to the absolute limits. And in hypercar, you have no room for negotiation. You've got to make sure the move is clean and precise. Otherwise, you are going to get chucked to the chicken house on the far side of the course. And Chris Milbourne, the voice of Dubai Autodrome, has indeed joined me. And it's a race that I know for a fact, as a big fan of Watkins Glen, that Chris Milbourne has been looking forward to coming into this one. 60 laps of the Glen, Chris. We're in for a great show, aren't we?
A very good evening, Jake. And yeah, I've been looking forward to this the entire week, to be honest. Actually, I'm really hyped up for Watkins Glen. I always have been, always will be, especially here virtually racing. I've got the track back with me here. I see that we're not using the full circuit configuration because we're going through the outer loop through turn 5 and then we go straight down towards turn 9. We're actually pushing the boot itself, which I was hoping to see on track, but I think this is going to be a very interesting challenge here this weekend for our race here, Jake.
Indeed, and I was just kind of intimating the fact that one of the biggest key factors around this particular circuit, of course, is that you've got absolutely no room to make mistakes because you have literally got about a foot, maybe 2 feet of grass before you reach the wall. So this is a bit like Monaco out stateside. This is a really tricky circuit in terms of being able to provide drivers with a chance to get it wrong. You don't have any room at all to fool around.
It certainly is. You've got a couple of quick corners here as well. Of course, this track known for its long history of sports car racing in the US, especially in series like the ALMS, the IMSA series, sports car racing across the US, NASCAR, IndyCar, and a few other series as well racing. There's some very rapid corners indeed. One to look out for is the run-up from turn 3 all the way through turn 4, and of course the back straight with the iconic bus stop. And that is a heavy braking zone there. I'm pretty sure it's going to catch a number of our drivers out here today. But all looks good, all looks clean at the moment as well. Of course, we've just started things off here today. I do apologise if you hear any extra noise in the background. Quite a noisy household today. It is the weekend here, and it is, well, it's almost the middle of the night here as well in the United Arab Emirates. And it's a great time to go racing, though.
Well, they're geared up for the Glen, and they're allowed to be as excited as they are. So all very exciting stuff. I'm hoping to get my timing screen up and running. It's currently doing the whole address is invalid moment at the moment. So hopefully that'll all correct itself in time for the races later. But obviously drivers are out on track now for qualifying. And it's a fascinating situation that the cars are finding out there on the circuit. It's dry, but obviously cool overcast conditions here at Watkins Glen. So that's pretty much perfect in terms of getting tyres up to temperature.
It certainly is, and also the other ticket that we have to take note of here this weekend as well is the number of new cars that we have here this weekend as well, including the Koenigsegg Jesko, which you can see right now on the screen. It just went off into the runoff area at turn 1. Great to see the Koenigsegg out there. We've got a Toyota as well. The GR01 is here, along with another number of cars that we had last time out, as the checker flag has just come out there for practice 1. So that's why we see a shot of the garage, but we'll be underway shortly with the next live session. So far, though, it is the Toyota GR010, the 008 Hypercar, which is shown as the fastest so far. 1:33.69 is the time to beat in practice time. That is, to see what it is like during quali, with a top speed of 308.7 kilometers an hour. It's mighty fast here around the Glen. As it looks like we're going racing now, at least for qualifying, that is. There we see the Bentley Continental. That is, of course, the new one with the elliptical lights there at the back. That should be Chris Brew that's working his way out onto the circuit for the first flying lap here in qualifying. There is another car behind him by the looks of it. They're coming out. Actually, looks like they're all coming out now for qualifying. Let's see now who will set the field here in our 20-minute session. It's a bit of a short one to set the field up here for our 60 laps plus 1 formation lap here of the Glen, and it's going to be an exciting one, that's for sure.
Indeed. Now, for those who are new to the world of CMS racing qualifying sessions, they are 20 minutes in length, as we mentioned, but the first 10 minutes are purely for GT cars. So the GT and GT-AM classes will come out onto the circuit and they will set their lap times. Then after those 10 minutes have ended, will come the Hypercars onto the circuit. So obviously it'll be the GTs that set the initial pace, and then we will get to see what they are able to produce in terms of the times. So it obviously leads into a very interesting tussle for all of the competitors. But compared to what we saw last week at Le Mans, this is a very, very different circuit. It's got its slight camber and elevation changes in places, Le Mans, but this is where you really start to feel it. And it's the cars that can get the most balance over the course of one lap that are really going to have the best of it, because there is so much elevation and undulation change through the course of the lap here at Watkins Glen. You need a car that's well balanced and well poised. And some of the top heavy cars, such as the Bentley and the Audi, are probably going to find that they will potentially, not necessarily definitely, struggle to get the car up to speed, rather than the perhaps all-rounder cars of the Ferraris and the McLarens. So it could be interesting to see how it all plays out. We're on board with the Bentley. This is, of course, the car being driven by Craig Downs, the Reptile racing machine. So it'll be fascinating to see if Craig Downs can get this Bentley to stop in the big braking zones.
Now, it looks to be very important to get the car out first in the Bentley here, as it's on its first official lap here, time lap as well. There is a very busy track from Sector 3 onwards. There's a whole heap of cars. It's going to be very interesting because, of course, in GT we have the biggest field, 23 cars separated over GT and GT, and we've got 8 in GT. with GTM. A healthy 15 cars here this weekend. Absolutely mammoth field we've got here, and it's going to be very, very competitive. And to get these lap times, it's going to be very difficult with that much traffic ahead of you. Let's see now who puts in the first times. Like I said before, the 13th place car on track that we see is Chris Brew, and that of course is just from a random order. No one has been set just yet. He has the cleanest amount of track in front of him, but it looks like some drivers behind him are going quicker here now as they work their way into Sector 2 here for the first time. At 267 kilometers an hour through the speed trap there as well. This is going to be very interesting. Who will be on pole position? Well, we've got 7 minutes to figure that out, so there should be enough time. But for this man right here, Chris Brew, I think he's got the most amount of time on the clock here, as he was the first out of the pit lane to get his laps pretty much sorted as soon as the green flag, the green light went off in the pit lane. So let's see how this one pans out.
So Brandon Gant is currently fastest of all in the first sector. He's dropped to 24.389 in the first split. But as you mentioned, Chris Brew being the first one out on track is clearly going to set the benchmark for everybody else. But his first sector time was not that far off the pace of Brandon Gant, less than 0.2 of a second away. So there's definitely more time in the circuit to find for the Bentley. And as he comes across the line, well, he goes straight up to the top spot on a 1:44.7. That's a good opener for the Bentley. So obviously some good performances in the early phase of things. Hopefully our timing graphics are going to come up on screen very soon indeed. We've got the brilliant pictures around the circuit, but on my screen certainly the graphics are not currently showing. They will come up, I'm sure, when the time is appropriate. But coming through, it is still Chris Brew ahead of Brandon Gant, who actually had a bit of a wobble in the second and third sectors. So that opening gambit from Chris Brew actually looks like it could be certainly potential pole position time. I say that, and here comes the Corvette of Aidan Coleman, who manages to pop up with a 1:43.885. Peter Mayer's opening gambit just outside the top 6 overall, and is third quickest, or was third quickest, but now Eugene Mazur pops up to go slightly quicker in the AM category. So Zalechki definitely quick in the opening of GT AM on a 928. So within about a second or so of the times, but still a little bit more work to do. There's about 2 more flying laps in this course for most of the field. But Chris Brew there in the Bentley Continental. It'll be interesting to have a look and see how Aidan Coleman's getting on in the Corvette. We've been watching Chris Brew for a fair while now. So we'll have a look and see how Coleman is getting on. And Brandon Gant is, of course, a driver we should be trying to pick up on as well when the time is opportune. But Chris Brew definitely trying to find a little bit more speed out of the car. Not as strong in Sector 1, so it's clear that he's struggling to find the raw pace.
Well, it looks like Aidan Coleman has just put a personal best again through Sector 1, a 24.402. And he's just come across the line again now, and he's 0.8 of a second up the road already from Chris Brew. So Aidan Coleman stays in front for the time being. But can anybody match that time that he's got? 0.8 of a second is quite a significant amount as well. Now, where's Chris Brew on track at the moment? Just trying to get my timing screen to work here as well. And it looks like Aidan Coleman may have dipped into the pit lane early by the looks of it, which leaves him... No, he's come back out. So must have got trying to get here another flying lap. Well, he's actually just gone through Sector 2, come to think of it, and he's at a 24.402. Now, Chris Brew's actually done a slightly faster Sector 1 time through there by about 6/100th of a second. As you see one of the McLarens go off, that's Stephen Miller. Remember, they had a slight issue last week at the start. It was a mechanical issue, but it was a mechanical issue outside of the game itself. They did a fantastic job to get that car up and running again, and the rig itself. Now, we now have the Stardust Autosport Aston Martin now into second position overall, 0.3 of a second off Aidan Coleman, but he still has that time to beat, does Aidan. Chris Brew, though, in hot pursuit. He's gone quicker through that first sector here, as he's working his way now through Sector 2. He's on a track map now. He's just come out of Sector 2 now into Sector 3 here. Again, he's got not so much traffic in front of him compared to others. The likes of Aidan Coleman, he's kind of in the thick of things at the moment, albeit he is leading that sort of pack at the moment from first onwards, but he's got a few cars to deal with that, and he looks like he may have had a small incident, his Aidan Coleman, because he's gone slowly through Sector 2, and he's stopped by the looks of it on track as well up the bus stop just before the outer loop. So unfortunately, he's going to have to call quits on this lap, and he's going to try again. He's back up to speed now, but very interesting what happened there. Now, what's he trying? Now, is this tactics? He's got less than 3 minutes to go on the clock, so he should have enough time to start a lap. However, he may have timed this let's say, not to perfection, because it looks like he has a few more cars in front of him than he'd like to at the moment, but he still does have that all-important pole position in GT at the moment.
Well, there is George Angelidis in the HPD Acura. Very good run from him thus far. He's about 1.7 away from the overall time, but not bad at all in terms of the potential for the podium. You've got to remember that qualifying is a good starting point, but it's the entirety of a 60-lap race that gets you to the checkered flag rather than just a one-lap dash. And there are certain drivers who don't qualify as well as they do race. I certainly always fit that particular mold in esports. I'm a much better racer than I am a qualifier. Trying to string a perfect lap together, no chance. Trying to chase down somebody who I feel is a little vulnerable in front, that's absolutely my sort of game plan. So Coleman is still currently on the top spot from Jamie Zalewski overall. Chris Brew is the third quickest GT and the second in category. Then it is Brandon Gant from Tom Lane in the Manta Squid Mustang and Cameron Barker in the Pedigree M6 BMW. There is George Angelidis, 6th in category and currently 8th overall. So that gives you a sort of an idea. It is the two leaders in GTM that is relatively on competitive pace. Jamie Zalewski and Tom Lane have both managed to get their GTMs into the overall top 5, which is very impressive from them. Peter Mayer, currently 12th overall and 6th in the category in his Porsche, the independent run car. And obviously we are getting ourselves towards the latter stages. Is anybody on a particularly fast lap? Well, yes, Tom Lane in the Manta Squid Mustang has just gone purple in the first sector. Now that would be amazing if one of the GTM cars could actually get to the top spot overall. So Tom Lane has come up with a fantastic opening sector. It's now going to be interesting to see if the Mustang on home turf for the Ford, of course, can keep this together. A 39.7 in the mid sector. See, this is where the overall balance of the car can sometimes get a little bit out of hand. And you can see that we've got just 10 minutes and 44 seconds or so left of the session. So that's 40 seconds left of the GTs. But Tom Lane, I think there was a slight twitch in the middle sector. So while it's very quick in the first sector, back up to purple in the second split has come Aidan Coleman. So Tom Lane, despite going purple in sector 1, is not going to get an overall fast time, but maybe, just maybe, could be able to get there in the realms of Jamie Zalewski as he comes across the line. What is he going to do? It ends up being a 1:44. It's no improvement in the end, unfortunately, for Tom Lane. It is a 1:44.958. It's a faster lap, but it doesn't improve his position in the overall rankings. Aidan Coleman, though, very strong lap there. A 1:43.448 for Aidan Coleman. The Corvette definitely running well on home turf.
Yeah, that was quite interesting, actually, because his tactic there was very strange. He stopped, as we said, in the bus stop at the inner loop just before the entrance to the outer loop, and it looked like he'd get stuck in traffic. However, he somehow played it to perfection, got past the slower cars in front of him, got that clean air, and managed to put in a banger of a lap there, and he's gone fastest of all here. And again, he's gone up to 0.8 of a second faster than his closest rival. He's absolutely fantastic. Tom Lane has gone quick through sector 1. That seems to be where he's the strongest, but then, however, he loses out in both sector 2 and sector 3, with this lap being about 0.09 of a second faster through that first sector. But it looks like he may have called it quits, because it looks like we're coming to the end here of qualifying for GT and GTM. Now, quickest through the speed trap at 305 kilometers an hour. That's mighty fast, because it looks like now actually we have the the Hypercars on track by the looks of it as well, because I see now there's some cars that are being shown further down the order at the moment. So now we're going to start getting some really fast laps in here, because I can see now car number 30 is working its way through sector 3 for the time being. So we should see all the GT cars now peeling to pit lane. Indeed they do. So that's GT over and done. We've got a yellow in sector 2. Now who's gone slow through that sector? The 29 is stopped on the outer loop by the looks of it. No, he hasn't. Sorry, that is the toe section. So actually looking at the map, so that's why I'm looking at it wrong. I thought we cut off from turn 5 to turn 9. We actually don't. We do have the chute toe and heel to complete the boot here. And unfortunately, that car there, the 29th car overall, was slow through that second sector. Now who's that? That would be, that's one of the Yeskos there. That is Gudemeier Benker, who has gone slow through that sector. That's just his first flying lap, so he should be getting underway soon. Now, is this tactics yet again, because he has a clear track ahead of him, although he does look like he's going a bit slow through turn 9 there at the moment. It's quickest through the speed trap there in sector 2, 306 kilometers an hour. Again, that's mighty quick. That's Dan Kirby in the CMS Pro, the Gus Baldy, who's working his way, and will he be the first of our hypercars now to put in a fast lap? Let's keep a close eye on him. Let's just put the GTs away for the time being, because they're all done and dusted. They've sorted themselves out now, but now it's time to focus on the hypercars. Now, Jake, who do you think we're going to have on pole position here?
This is incredibly difficult to predict because we saw some great performances last week at Le Mans, but this couldn't be a more difficult circuit. Jason Whitehead could get the Yesco up to the front end if he's able to get it together. Ben Borman was very quick over one lap and always has been in time qualifying. I've got a feeling that the Pagani Imola might actually be a pole position contender. We know that Wouter de Bruin traditionally tends to come good in the latter stages of races where he's a little bit more tactical and a little bit more strategic over the course of an hour-long race. But I've got the feeling that the Pagani Imola, nimble as it is in the shorter wheelbase, might have a chance here as Dan Kirby pops up with the benchmark time, and it's a 1 minute 30.682. So the Bugatti Bolide coming straight in. Hopefully we'll get to see some of the cars out on track, because at the moment all I've got is Aidan Coleman's pit box in front of me at this precise moment in time. So we'll come back to that shortly. Kirby has been hunted down a little there by Ben Borman, but he can only get into the 132s to start with. Jason Whitehead, and then we've got Matthew Overton, Bob Robertson, and Eric Moyne. Brian Hall pops up into second place with a 131.2, which is within about half a second, but still some very interesting battles to come from the drivers on this one. But it's fascinating to see how it's all currently playing out. Dan Kirby currently on the top spot for pole position. We gather there are some technical difficulties with our cameras at the moment, but we can still see what's happening on live timing. So can you as well if you're on cmsracing-com.liveracers.com, and you can obviously click the link to the live timing. Dan Kirby, in front of Brian Hall and Ben Borman, then Jason Whitehead and Matthew Overton. Up to fourth comes the flying Kiwi Lamborghini of Jerry Chen. He banged in a good one there, 132.8, which is still 2.2 seconds roughly away from the raw pace of Dan Kirby, who just seemed to get the perfectly clean lap that he was after out of the blocks.
Yeah, and just keeping a close eye now on both Dan Kirby, Ben Borman and Brian Hall, because of course they're our top three at the moment. Now it looks like Ben Borman was stronger through sector 2 on the previous lap. It looks like Brian Hall's actually come into the pit lane. It looks like he's going to restart his fly lap, as is Dan Kirby. He's coming to the pit lane to restart his flying lap as well. Not sure why he's done that, because now he's going to come out within, by the looks of it, behind some slower cars here. So he's going to be stuck behind some traffic. Maybe pick up a toe here and there, especially on the back straight. But again, very interesting tactics being played out, as we saw in GT as well, as Matthew Overton now goes into fourth place. The Lamborghini SCV12 now shooting his way up the order. Dan Kirby, as we said, is the fastest man by 0.5 of a second. Brian Hall currently sitting in second position. He's, as he said, 0.5 of a second back. Then it's 1.4 seconds back from the race leader, is Ben Borman, but he's 0.9 of a second from Brian Hall. So it certainly is the Dan Kirby and Brian Hall cars that are setting the pace here, and almost in a class of their own here. They're almost a second up the road from anybody else at the moment, as we say that. And Luca Gray goes right into second position there. I think that was his first lap as well that he's just put in. So let's have a see where Luca Gray was fastest of all on that previous lap, as he's not gone through sector 2. So he's a 21. Oh, we just lost his timing there. That's because he's come into the pit lane and he's restarted his lap as well in the 202 GR010. As track is emptying out at the moment. A lot of drivers in the hypercar category choosing to come into the pit lane and sort of restart it. We've got a few drivers that actually haven't put a lap time in at all, although that might change now as you say that, as one of the Ross Smith and the Koenigsegg Jesko also now goes up into the top 8 ahead of Jason Whitehead by, well, he's 2.1 seconds off of the race leader, but 0.8 of a second off 7th place at the moment. We have just over 3.5 minutes remaining on the clock, so enough time for at least 2 more laps. Now, I have seen that Luca Gray, so he was his 3rd lap, so that was his first of the actual qualifying laps that he did, and he was stronger through sector 2 than anybody else was, with a 33.689 there on that lap, with a speed of 298.6. Then we haven't seen quite 300 plus kilometers an hour just yet, but I think things are now starting to spice up here in the final 3 minutes of qualifying before we set the field for a 60-lap race here around the Glen.
So Dan Kirby currently looking at pole position in the Bugatti Bolide from CMS Pro. Luca Gray within 0.1 of a second off that time. Can either of them push the limit and find a little bit more? Well, the first sector comes in from Dan Kirby on what is likely to be his penultimate flying lap. He does a 21.131, which is very quick. It's not quite the quickest of the session, but it's definitely comparable to the pace up at the sharp end, as we've had some slight difficulties with our cameras. They will be rectified in time for racing, folks, so do not worry too much about that. Luca Gray, second at the moment from Brian Hall and Ben Borman, Matthew Overton and Jerry Chen, Eric Moyne, Ross Smith, Jason Whitehead, Bob Robertson, and Guillaume Benchke. That is the 11 cars that are in Hypercar, currently all covered by 4 seconds around this circuit. Obviously, you've got to remember that there are two classes within the Hypercars. You have the Pro and Am categories. So Dan Kirby and Luca Gray, definitely the 2 cars battling away for position. Personal bests so far for Dan Kirby in the Bugatti Bolide. His current lap time is that of a 1:30.682. Looking at his current pace, he might just be able to get inside that. There's Guillaume Benchke in the Jesco. Looks like our cameras are back to scratch again, which is excellent news. And Kirby is looking to decrease that time even more. Third place across the line for Brian Hall. We're going to have to go with auto cams, I believe, for the entirety of the race, which is fair enough. It still means we'll get plenty of action to talk about for the 60 laps of the Glen. These things happen. There is Dan Kirby, the man who is currently on the top spot, and he's just done a 1:31.5, so about a second away from his own personal best. As Benchke comes across the line, what can the Jesco do? Personal bests all the way round for Guillaume Benchke this time by, and he has managed to pop the car on a 1:33.976. That's his personal best, and it puts him 11th overall, 6th in the Hypercar Am category. So not a bad start to proceedings. There's yellow in second.
Streaming, and we're back, I think.
So welcome back to the Glen as we get ourselves ready for the Virtual World Sports Car Championship from Champions Motorsport Racing. A whole bunch of enthusiasts getting ourselves ready for the start of race action. Jake Sanson and Chris Milborn in the box with occasional help assistance from Ross Smith and Phil Stocks. They are giving us all of the hard work that they can give us to get us ready for racing. The warm-up is underway, so don't worry, folks, you haven't missed any of the race action itself. And based on what we saw in qualifying, Chris, it looks like it's very marginal between Luca Gray in the Toyota and Dan Kirby in the Bugatti. Very tough to know who's actually got the best one-lap pace and who is likely to challenge them over the course of an entire race distance.
Yeah, true that. And just looking at this, Sector 2, Stephen Miller seemed to have had slight issue. Now, we just saw briefly when the stream came back on there that Stephen Miller was caught up all over the place with the faster prototype car, the Hypercars there. And unfortunately, it looks like he's tried to move it that way and it hasn't worked out in his favour. It's a good thing we're in warm-up and not the actual race here, but that slow set, or the yellow flag that was waving there, has been withdrawn. Well, we better yet, we just speak about that. We've got another yellow flag in Sector 3. This is now for the 4th fastest car overall. That's Ben Borman, who stopped through turn 10 and 9, but it looks like he's got going again. So, and actually he's gone straight back into the pit lane. So I think he might have some kinks to work out there as well. But yeah, qualifying very interesting and very close as well. I've just noticed as well that we had first and second in GT went the ways of GT pole and GT Am pole. So they will share that row of the grid. I didn't quite spot that during quali there, but it's the 027 of Coleman and the 26 that will start there alongside one another. It's the Corvette C8 and the Aston Martin alongside for company. Of course, getting things heated up here, as we saw already. Things were getting very dicey earlier on here in the warm-up session. But great to be back racing again here in this series. Moments away actually from the checkered flag dropping here, less than 10 minutes to go on the clock. Great time now for the drivers to kind of get a feel for the track here before 60 laps plus one formation lap, because it's going to be a long one.
It certainly is. 60 laps of the Glen, and with very little room to manoeuvre if there is the slightest error in judgment. One thing I'm picking up on watching Craig Dans in the Reptile Bentley going around is that there is definitely going to be some sparks flying. A lot of the cars running very close to the ground, as we ride on board briefly with Vinicius Gonçalves in the BMRS Esports Corvette. He's going to be one of the contenders for a podium in the Am category, in the Pro category, I should say. But it will be fascinating to see just who is able to keep out of the wall, because you can notice on the onboard here, if you're getting wheel-to-wheel with drivers, and they will get decent wheel-to-wheel action as the Hypercars close up on the GTs, there could be two drivers bouncing off a wall or two before this race is out, and that's definitely going to make things particularly spicy out there as drivers try to stay out of trouble. Certainly in amongst the Hypercars, there's going to be a lot of very fast drivers wanting to make a move or two.
And it's not like the Circuit de los Saltos we ran last week. This is a lot shorter, this track. We're doing 130s, 131s in the hypercar categories, 146s in the GT. So, of course, all the cars will be in close proximity, so things are going to get hectic, and they're going to get hectic fast as well. Now, it's interesting, Jake, what you said about Craig Dance before the Bentley. Now, of course, the Bentley is one of the heavier cars in the field as well, so that's going to be a lot lower. But then we saw the Ferrari as well, with sparks coming out the left front just before it ran a little bit wide there. So, again, a lot of these cars scraping the ground. We just saw the Porsche there as well. A lot of downforce being thrown down here, and certainly a few of the corners here. That's going to catch some people out here and there. So the drivers here have to be careful, because, of course, yes, we're racing online, but it doesn't mean damage is turned off. No, we're running at 75% here. So the slightest mistake can cost you the race. And we saw that last week. We saw very, very minimal incidences happen. And then all of a sudden, the car was withdrawn from the race due to damage and contact the wall. Even though we're sim racing, we still do it like we do in real life. Damage is in full effect here, and drivers have to be extra cautious as we're riding on board here with Luca Gray. This is the pole sitter. Again, this is a really interesting view. Just look how far back he sits in this car, and just look at how protruding that front end of this Toyota is. Fantastic to see, but his field of view is very, very small in comparison to some of the other cars here we have on track, and that's going to be a key part of his race here. He's going to have to focus a lot in that Toyota.
That's a really good point, actually, because even though we're in the world of esports, obviously the drivers still have to use the view from on the cockpit for the added reality of it, the added realism of it. And I wouldn't be surprised how many drivers there would be that have actually had to try and balance field of vision with handling capacity of car, because obviously you have to have that little bit of a blend. Chris Brew won't be wanting to do that too many times during the race itself, overshooting at first corner, because while you have that runoff area to catch you, you obviously have got track limits to take into account in the world of VWSC. You obviously have to be very focused on your objectives. But yeah, there could be quite a few drivers who probably tried to balance the difference between what you can see out of the windscreen compared to how decent the car is to handle. And I know a lot of the drivers who went testing with these cars would have made their choices at the beginning of the year as to which car they were going to run based on the smartest element of that balance. There could be a couple of drivers who've literally just gone for the car that feels best, and then having to try and work around the problem of trying to compromise the field of vision, which is obviously an interesting factor in these cars. But now we've got the Toyota in of Luca Gray. That does kind of throw a bit of an upset into the mix, and these Yescos coming in for the first time, much shorter wheelbase than the Valkyries, so they're going to be potentially a little bit more nimble. This is not just a one-off change. This is for the rest of the season, we're told, from the Storm Riders. So a bit of a dramatic change. They're allowed to do it, of course, if they wish to, but I don't think the guys at Aston Martin particularly happy about the fact that that's 4 Valkyries suddenly gone from the grid in favour of the Koenigsegg Yescos. So yeah, an interesting dynamic coming into this one. And of course, the big question is going to be, can they win coming out of the blocks? Or are they actually going to find that it's quite difficult to get these cars up to speed? The likes of Dan Kirby here in the CMS Pro Bugatti Bolide, he's going to have an advantage because he knows what to expect from his car, having raced it since the start of the year.
Yeah, just having a look at all the cars that we have here this weekend, as you said, the change of cars is quite significant, and they've taken quite a leap towards them. We do still have one of the Aston Martin Valkyries out there. The Miguel Ramos car is still there as well. Unfortunately, Miguel Ramos missed a couple of races here due to an arm injury, but great to have him back here this season in this race as well around the Glen. Just touching up on the car rules. So yeah, at the beginning of the season, a lot of drivers would get a feel for the car and they choose the right one based on what they feel about the car. But it looks like one of the rules that we have here actually allows the driver to swap cars at least once. Maybe it's once only actually throughout the season, otherwise they will incur a penalty. But drivers do get the opportunity, if they want to choose a different car, say for example if they're doing some off-season testing, they can choose to swap car and not be penalised for it. Okay, if they do it multiple times, yes, it's like an issue. Because we have seen a few drivers, like the Yescos, have now been swapped into the series here for the race here at the Glen. Now we've got a yellow in Sector 2, the 21st place car overall is slow through the bus stop at the back of the track there by the looks of it. Now, who is that that's gone slowly through? That is Tom Nasaler in the Ford Mustang GT. And it's not Chris Brew, because we're looking at Chris Brew at the moment. Now, it looks like Nasaler's got going again, so the yellow flag has been withdrawn. We saw a number of these incidents happen, but yellow now again in Sector 3. Who's gone slow through there? No, there's not anyone stopped on track. There might be between the 17th place fastest car of Gonzalez in his Corvette C8, although it looks like he's got back up to speed, or has he? Because he's actually going a little bit slower in comparison to some of the cars that are actually coming through behind him. Although the car that's actually behind him at the moment is Ross Smith there at the moment, so that's not something we should be looking at the moment. But can't be a root cause of why the 17 was going slowly. Of course, two cars in two different categories, and if anyone was to be slowed down, it'd be Ross Smith rather than the Gonzalez car. That would be the slower of the two, because of course Gonzalez racing in the Corvette C8, the GT category. Ross Smith is in the Hypercar category, so he's got the faster car, so he would have been the one that impeded, not Gonzalez. With a minute and a half to go now in the session here for
in the Toyota. Slight connection issues there, obviously a little bit of accidental crossover. We'll try and minimize that as much as humanly possible. The CMS Pro Bugatti the lead there. Dan Kirby, 1.4 seconds deficit in warm-up to Luca Gray, but it's significantly tighter than that through qualifying. Ben Borman, Brian Hall and Jason Whitehead all going to be gunning for the victory in the Hypercar category, so we know how tight that's going to be. Really interesting challenge for the drivers as they continue to make fast progress. It'll be fascinating to see how it continues in the progress. But there is Dan Kirby in the CMS Pro Bugatti Bolide. He is definitely one to watch for as we're into the last minute of the warm-up. I've got a feeling about the Jesco though, Chris. Jason Whitehead definitely seems to have got up to speed rather quickly, as has Ben Borman with these cars. They might surprise us. They might come out of the blocks and be a winning package straight away.
Well, the fastest Jesco is actually 7th fastest. Ben Borman with 131.667. Now, Ben Borman did have a slight incident going through sector 1, but of course the car is new to the championship this weekend. Although we don't have any in the top 3. No, that's not technically true, because Ben Borman showed us 3rd fastest overall in the session. I think he starts in the top 3 as well. So that's certainly going to be a wild card here for this race. And yeah, I do apologise for the crossover there. My internet connection isn't the best here where I'm currently located, so apologies for that. But the session now is officially over for our 20-minute warm-up session here. As you can see, the checkered flag waves there as all the cars now will make their way into the pit lane. A few more drivers need to check the checkered flag before we move on. But this has given us a good insight into who is fast where, and it still seems to be that Luca Gray and that Toyota appears to be the fastest of all, and that Toyota is certainly going to be one to watch here. He was 1.4 seconds faster than Dan Kirby in the Bugatti Bolide, with Ben Borman in the Koenigsegg Jesco being 3rd fastest overall. Although on the screen that I'm seeing in front of us, it actually shows that Brian Hall was 3rd fastest here in this session towards the end.
So now I think the graphic has reset itself. It's now getting itself ready for the start of racing. And that's going to be another gentle reset there to get us ready for the start of racing. So a slight change in the graphic there, and we're going to get ourselves, I think they've just had to do another quick warm-up to reset the start of the grid, which does occasionally happen. So we've gone from a race session straight back to a warm-up, but that's not going to be staying around for long, as that will obviously reset itself into a race setting very quickly indeed. So it just gives the technicians a chance to get us into the correct position and get us ready for the start once again. But the Glen definitely looking to serve us up a bit of a treat. Interesting to note the absences of some of the big names from this particular championship. A few of the absences, particularly the likes of Wouter de Bruin in the Pagani. We were expected to see him, and certainly haven't seen him out so far over the course of proceedings. Ahmed Abdallah, of course. I wonder if he's still smarting a little bit from the way he dropped it at Le Mans last. His pride a little bit, and usual for Ahmed Abdallah to make that kind of mistake as well. So obviously that could be something that is a little bit reflected, either that or a schedule clash, because obviously not everybody is able to do every round of the championships. And of course, the one after this one is back to the world of 1991, as the competitors are going to be making their way back into the world of Group C once again, as we just keep an eye briefly on Chris Brew in the Bentley Continental, getting his way out of the pits. Very nearly hit the pit wall on the way out of the pits. He's coming out pretty quickly. But the drivers just gearing themselves up. They're obviously using the opportunity to drive the car on the circuit and give themselves a test in their pit boxes, I think, because obviously in their pit stops, they'll come down the pit lane, and they obviously need to make sure they stop in their pit boxes correctly. So they need to know where their pit box is located. But it won't be too long now until we get ourselves under race start here in the Virtual World Sports Car Championship. 60 laps of the Glen to come.
And Kunoel Venchka is taking the opportunity exactly the way he needed to. He's got a clean track ahead of him. Well, and as soon as I said that, he's ducked in straight at the pit lane. So he's done one quick lap around the track. But now for Chris Brew, he's got the track all to his lonesome at the moment as he learns the track a little bit more here, getting that slight advantage over the rest of the field as the rest of the drivers here we have here say that, and another one is actually pitting his way out of the pit lane as we speak. Just getting a little bit more time here. It's Craig Dans that's getting back out there in the other Bentley Continental. Now these two cars are the two heaviest cars on the grid. So of course, no doubt that these two will be looking for each and every corner where they might feel the weight of that Bentley. But there is Craig Dans now, who's making his way out of the pit lane. Gonzalez is out as well. Actually, a few more drivers now starting to follow suit. So actually, a lot of the GT drivers here are choosing to do some additional laps here while we have this 20-minute warm-up session here before the start of our race here at Watkins Glen. We have now out on track Peter Meyer, Craig Dans, as we said before. Alexander Model has gone out as well. We have Gonzalez, who's doing an out lap, 28th overall. Ross Smith in the Koenigsegg Iesco, is out as well. Now, and it's very interesting to note that Ross Smith is being shown as 28th fastest behind the GT cars, because of course that Iesco is in the hypercar category. Not sure why he's being shown that far down. May have had an issue during qualifying. Didn't quite pick up on that for the Noon Racing driver. I know that he has been hopping in and out of the commentary box here. Of course, doing double, triple, I think even quadruple duty here actually this weekend, come to think of it. For the race here. So we've got more hypercars now peeling their way onto the track, including some more Iescos as well. Always a fabulous car to look at here as well, as Ross Smith goes, well, I was going to say fastest through that first sector, but he's actually blasting his way through that first sector on his out lap.
So we're just waiting for the last couple of drivers to be thrown back into the server, and then we'll be able to go racing in the Virtual World Sports Car Championship at the Glen. And it is going to be an exciting battle once we get going again. There's Alexander Model, the German driver in his Ferrari. So hopefully it'll be an interesting race for him. He's hoping to go for the pole position in category. But it's obviously going to be an interesting one for him in the GT class. It's obviously going to be very, very tricky for the German in the Ferrari to uphold honours there. There is Craig Dans in the Reptile Bentley. He's obviously going to be battling for the honours in GTM as well. But the Glen here, definitely going to take its prisoners out there. There's no doubting that one. Look at the sparks being thrown up by the Reptile Bentley as it dips down. And now I think we're going to get ourselves ready for the start as the last few cars are coming in. And yes, indeed, the last few cars, we were just waiting for a couple more people to be added to the server. And now we are getting ourselves ready for the 60 laps of the Glen. 61 is what's shown on the graphic, but that, of course, includes the first formation lap, which does technically count within the rFactor server, but obviously we're only there for the formation lap. So it's going to be an interesting challenge with all the cars gearing up. And now the moment that we have been waiting for. Luca Gray in that Toyota on the front row of the grid with Dan Kirby in the Bugatti Bolide. Anything can happen from here on in. And I've got a feeling this is definitely going to be a straight fight between the four cars up at the front. We've got Toyota, Bugatti, Lamborghini and Koenigsegg all bidding for the victory with some very competitive cars. Eric Moyne may even end up with an overall podium, the way the chaos sometimes occurs in the Virtual World Sports Car Championship. It might not even be him. It might be one of the other drivers that gets a look in Hypercar Am. But based on what we saw at Le Mans last week and what we've generally seen in the Virtual World Sports Car Championship, this is very much unfamiliar territory as the drivers gear themselves up. The green flag flies on the top of the gantry. And so now the drivers will head around on their exploratory formation lap. It has been a big build-up, and it's been a good one, but now we are getting ourselves ready for the action to kick off and we will talk you through the grid in each of the categories and, of course, overall as well. And we are prepared for some exciting drama in the Virtual World Sports Car Championship. Luca Gray will be starting up from the front with Dan Kirby alongside in the CMS Pro Bugatti. Brian Hall in the Hall Brothers Lamborghini with Ben Borman in the Koenigsegg-Jesko. And then Eric Moyne will be there along with Matthew Overton as they run together 5th and 6th on the grid. Jerry Chen and Jason Whitehead will be together next up. Jason Whitehead is 8th overall in the Yaggle, but 5th in the Hypercar category. 9th and 10th, Ross Smith in the Noon Racing Koenigsegg-Jesko and Bob Robertson in the Toyota. And then Guillermo Benchka in 11th position. A little gap back, and that'll be the first of the GTs. Aidan Coleman and Jamie Selechki, the Pro versus the AM on the front row. Chris Brew and Cameron Barker will be on the second row of the GT grid. And George Angelidis in the HBD Acura and the Manta Squid Mustang of Tom Lane. Brandon Gant and Vinicius Gonçalves, Nissan. And then it'll be Brian Van Boyscombe and Peter Meyer, Ferrari versus Porsche, that age-old rivalry. In the Speed Details McLaren, he'll be lining up alongside Craig Dans in the Reptile Bentley. And then we will have Bruce Hopkins in the Aston Martin, Eugene Mazur in the Pazuzu Porsche, from Tom Nazella and Ed Jones at the tail end of the field. It's not the Ed Jones, I should point out. It is just a namesake. But we are getting ourselves ready for 60 laps of the Glen. Chris Milbourne, I'm getting excited.
As am I here. 29 cars will take to the field here, separated to Hypercar, Hypercar AM, GT and GT AM. The majority of the field here in the GT AM cars, 23 cars on the provisional entry list. I think we have a slightly less than that at the moment, but still a lot of GT cars. There's a lot of places to look around here as well. A lot of quick drivers as well, actually starting further back than we first anticipated, as we're working our way now into Sector 3 here for the final time on our formation lap. This will be the slowest we go, hopefully, towards the end of the 61 laps we're going to run here. 60 laps plus that 1 lap for the formation, which is currently underway. I'm very excited, Jake, for this one. And let's see how this one pans out. Now, as we work our way through the hill and up into turn 9, just 2 more corners before the green flag waves here. For the VWSC. This is going to be a mighty exciting one here. As I said, Hypercars and GTs battling it out on track for some intense racing action here at upstate New York at Watkins Glen.
And a reminder, of course, to everybody that in CMS racing, we end up with a battle from the start, but it's all single file on the formation start. They do not go in the 2 rows because obviously we want to make sure that we have a good race of it. So they're going to come to the line. Dan Kirby tucks up behind Luca Gray, and as they come to the line, they will start racing. It's not until the leader comes through that they can start going to green flag conditions. And now we are racing up the boot of the throttle. Comes Luca Gray, and up to the first corner. 60 laps to go. And we are charging our way forward. A perfect start from Gray. Kirby is there in second place from Hall, Borman, and then Whitehead is going to be tucked up in there with the likes of Overton and Moyne. Luca Gray just settling into a good rhythm in the Toyota as they work their way through the S's for the first time and onto the back straight. Luca Gray definitely getting some pressure nice and early from Dan Kirby, who seems to have got a good pace in the slipstream. Is Dan Kirby going to make a move for the lead on the first lap? He's definitely thinking about it as they're coming to the bus stop for the first time. And Luca Gray desperately trying to shake off the Bugatti lead.
There's a very interesting start there. Luca Gray got his foot down pretty much immediately, but it looked like Dan Kirby just missed the timing there by ever so fractions of a second. But it seems to be on the back straight. That car really started to reel in that Toyota, but the gap has got up to a second here. It's a fantastic start already. We've got a battle for the lead already, as we said. We haven't even completed a lap, and we're already fighting for the top step of the podium here already. Here is the Matthew Overton. This is the leader in Hypercar AM, and he seems to have already got a gap between himself and Eric Glen behind him by 2.7 seconds. So a fantastic start there for Eric. Here's the battle in GT. That's Tom Lasella. Actually, he's a bit further down by the looks of it. He's in 11th place overall. Sorry, 28th overall. 11th in class. So he's got a lot of work to be doing here as Tom Lasella in that Ford Mustang GT3. Right at the back there is Stephen Miller, who's looking for a way through here. But exciting stuff already on the opening lap here at Watkins Glen as we're working our way through the boot here of the GT category, just out of Sector 2 here for the first time. But our race leaders have already got across. The 17th place car, as shown, has not come through yet. Now that would be Brandon Gant that has not gone through. It looks like his sector timing is showing us that he's at the start-finish line. Now has Brandon Gant gone through? It's showing that he's 5th overall, so there might be a timing blip there. Don't worry about that, Brandon Gant fans. He's still in the racing. He's 5th overall in class. He's number 31, so he's still circulating. Just the sector time there, keeping a small heart attack there. New best lap time for Zalewski, a 1:48.512. First lap in the books. We got through cleanly, Jake.
We certainly did. Everybody obviously deciding that they're not going to win the race on the first lap, but they can definitely lose it as Vinicius Gonçalves watches the car behind him on the road just tripping up in his mirrors. So Gonçalves there in the WSC Esports Corvette having a very solid race of it. So they now go down the back straight on this second lap of racing, third lap of the 61 on the official lap counter. But Dan Kirby, after challenging Luca Gray on the opening lap, seems to be settling into a rhythm. You've got to remember that this is about managing tyres and fuel as much as it is about racing wheel to wheel. So Dan Kirby will obviously just want to hustle behind Luca Gray as much as possible. If the opportunity for an overtake comes, he's obviously going to take it. But there's a massive percentage to essentially backing Luca Gray into a corner to make a mistake rather than overdriving the Bugatti Bolide and trying to make the overtake in his own right. There is Guillaume Benchke in the Jesko. So the Koenigsegg Jesko, obviously brand new to this Storm Rider team, as Luca Gray bangs in a 1:32.218, and that is the first representative lap time of the race so far. Lap 1, of course, counts as the formation lap. So lap 2, the first racing lap. Lap 3 is the first flying lap, essentially. And we're on lap 4 now. So Benchke in the Jesko, obviously trying to increase his position and try and move his way further forward as we watch the other Toyota GR010 in the mix, and this is the old and slow Bob Robertson Toyota GR010 car, and it's fabulous to see Bob Robertson still pushing his weight around the circuit in the Toyota GR010 in the Mobo colours. Very famous in the world of sports cars, and I have to say the Toyota looks really good in it as Coleman bangs in the fastest GT lap, a 1:46.053 in front of Brew, Barker and Angelidis.
Just looking at the sector times between Luca Gray and Dan Kirby, it seems to be that Toyota does very well in Sector 2. Now, Sector 2 is very different from Sector 3 and Sector 1. In both those two sectors, we have a few more straights and not a lot of heavy braking zones, whereas in Sector 2, it gets quite technical. So we include the bus stop, then we've got the turn through the outer loop, through the chute, and into the toe as well. And that seems to be where the Toyota is really on it. However, when it comes to Sector 1 and Sector 3, the Bugatti Bolide gets to speed a lot quicker and seems to be faster. Now, we've got a yellow flag through Sector 2. Now, who's going slow in that sector at the moment? Well, it's just been withdrawn. I didn't quite catch who that may have been, although who's 23rd overall, because that car is losing positions at the moment. It's dropping like a stone. That is Stephen Miller in the McLaren 720S. It looks like he may have had a slight issue because he's lost a lot of ground there going through Sector 2, and that was through the bus stop there on the back straightaway at the back part of the track. But again, all cleanly through so far. It's still showing that Brandon Gant has a blip on the screen here, running 5th overall. His little dot doesn't seem to be moving around the track, which is really putting me off here. But he is still circulating at the moment, still 5th at the moment as well in class. Now, where is he doing battle at the moment? Because now it's showing that Tom Lane is just out of line by 2.5 seconds, but Brandon Gant is a second off George Angelidis at the moment. In GT, the top two, Aidan Coleman and Jamie Zalewski, are battling it out for top honours in that category. They've just come across the line now, and again, this time around is Aidan Coleman, who is slightly faster across the line compared to Zalewski there in the Aston Martin Vantage GT3 car, and by fractions of a second. It was literally fractions of a second there between the two of them. Of course, they're battling not just for overall in GT. They're battling, they're trying to keep one up on each other. They're in GT and GTM because, of course, Zalewski is the leader in GTM, and there he is on the outside, by the looks of it, going through the bus stop. Has he got the line? No, he hasn't. He has to tuck in behind the Corvette. This is a great battle, and look who's behind them as well. Chris Brew, he wants in on this action, and he knows what exactly is right in front of him because the lead in GT is just ahead of him, and he's biding his time. He's waiting for that prime opportunity here, and he's waiting for both Coleman and Zalewski to trip over one another so he can just sneak up on the inside of that Bentley and say, thank you very much, I'm leading the GT field.
This is Stonesy from Zalewski trying to get himself into the overall GT lead. Great to see him push his weight around there. Luca Gray still trying to stretch out the gap to Dan Kirby. It's opened up to about 2 seconds roughly. Obviously, when they go through the bus stop, he catches up a little bit and then gets himself back into that same gap. Matthew Overton, currently leading the Hypercar AM category. He got a much better start, actually, than Eric Moyne in the Acuri Mistral Lambo. So the flying Kiwi car has been able to come through into first position rather than Eric Moyne. Jerry Chen making it a Lamborghini podium at the moment, but Ross Smith in his Jesko running in 4th position in front of Robertson and Benchka as they continue the Hypercar AM train. But definitely a very interesting one for Overton as he tries to stretch out from Moyne. There's Ben Borman sliding around a little bit behind Brian Hall in the Lamborghini. That's certainly the Koenigsegg Jesko. Very much first time in the hands of Ben Borman. This change definitely seems to have suited the team. They obviously wouldn't have made the switch for the entirety of the squad to the Koenigsegg Jesko if they weren't all in favour of it. Brian Hall runs wide. This could be the opportunity that Ben Borman's been looking for to try and sneak up into 3rd position. He does drift out a little bit deep there from the left-hander. And as we switch back to the GTs, it is the HPD Acura, George Angelidis, that is trying to close up on the car in front of him, and that is Barker. So an interesting gaggle. Look at it, it's still very close indeed between the drivers at the front end of GT as we are on lap 7, if you include the formation lap, and these guys so close together. You've got Gant right in there behind Angelidis trying to make his way through. A little bit of a puff of dust. There's a couple of drivers running wide, but Brandon Gant in the Nissan really trying to go for it. As in amongst the AMs, we've got Stian Gjovard in front of Peter Meyer, and a big washout there as the Porsche is trying to close up on the Ferrari. It's still very tight as they continue to make good progress.
And we've got a fantastic battle here, as we just saw there in GT. Not 1, not 2, but 6 cars vying for the lead in GT, and they're separated by what looks to be 3-ish seconds between 6 cars. Now that is a fantastically close battle. That's less than a second between each of the cars. And we saw Angelidis just ever go slightly wrong there through the bus stop. Just missed the braking point there, but luckily kept it all in one piece and managed to stay ahead of the GTR Nismo. As here's Tom Lane, he's second in class, a bit further back from this battle that's happening, but he's kind of locked in his own battle here because, of course, he's trying to keep Alexander Modell behind him in the Ferrari. Of course, the Mustang GT out in front for the time being. Of course, Tom Lane won last time out here at the Circuit de la Sarthe. But this battle here for GT is absolutely stonking at the moment. Here's the 5th place car overall in category. That's the number 4. Robertson behind the wheel there in the second of the Toyotas. Great to see 2 Toyotas back out here this weekend. The leading Toyota is stretched out now to 9.3 seconds. No, that wasn't correct because now it's gone to 2.5 seconds. So a little bit of a timing glitch there because I was going to say that either that something's happened timing related, or that Luca Gray car found a shortcut somewhere and it's gone straight through about 4 different barriers to get that gap of 11 seconds up. But it's coming down again, and it's coming down by quite a significant margin as well by the looks of it. It's 0.017 between the two of them. Now that can't be right either. No, it's not. It's 9th of a second. We're getting shaky up already here between Luca Gray and Dan Kirby. I know the battle was on at the very beginning, and here is that battle indeed. As you see, Luca Gray has already found some back markers to deal with. Now, this is certainly playing in the hands of Dan Kirby. Not so much in Luca Gray, because if he picks them up in the wrong places like he just did there, because he found a couple of them through the chute, that's going to cause him some issues. And you see just how Dan Kirby has picked his way perfectly through there, because he's found them at the exact point that he needs to on the straightaways. When you hit the corner, the last thing you want to see when you come round it is a back marker. And there you see Luca Gray thinking to himself, oh no, I've got 6 cars to get through. And looking at that train in front of him, I think he's coming up to the battle there for the GT lead by the looks of it. So he's going to play a key factor in this battle as well now. And we've only completed 8 laps. Well, 7 laps, including if we include the formation lap. So things are already getting exciting, and we haven't even completed 10 laps of the race here already.
No, indeed. We thought it wasn't going to be a massive amount of time. And that's a bit of an off there from one of the competitors. Was that Luca Gray trying to storm his way through? Look, they are working their way, the Hypercars, through the GTs at this point. So it's all about trying to pitch the position and hope that the car is going to hold together. As George Angelidis in the Acura slips into 5th position. So Brandon Gant and Barker have both managed to get through and stretch away. There is Gray trying to slot his way through one by one, and it's really worked out for Gray. It hasn't worked out at all for Daniel Kirby at this point. He has got held up big time by the GTs. we have somebody going off the road there, just trying to avoid the issues, as Jason Whitehead in the Condensed-format finds himself tucked up in behind. I think that's one of the flying Kiwi Lamborghinis. That has got to be Jerry Chen, who is just up behind Eric Moyne. And those two are working their way through Peter Meyer in the Porsche. So Jason Whitehead just trying to tuck his way through in the hope that he can get back on terms with Moyne and Chen. This is for position, don't forget. This isn't just for Hypercar honours, but Luca Gray, look at that. He's managed to get himself 6.5 seconds clear of Daniel Kirby just by snelting his way through the traffic a little bit more efficiently. And as we approach 1/6 distance in this race already, it's going by very rapidly here at Watkins Glen. It is already turning into a bit of a rout for Luca Gray on Toyota. It looks like Dan Kirby is going to need the traffic to come back again in the hope that he can use it to his advantage later.
He's certainly going to need to, and while we're discussing that, Chris Brew that is, managed to take not one but 2 positions, and he now leads the GT category overall as well. He's found a way past both Aidan Coleman and Jamie Zalewski as well on that lap, so now he takes the lead in class. As you see the blue flags waving here, and when you have multi-class racing, for the faster cars, it's a little bit more difficult than it would be for, say, the GT cars. So we're talking about the Hypercars here, because of course, I'm not saying the GT cars here are slow, they are up to speed as well, but you can see how much of an impact they make on a battle for the lead in GT, because here comes a very close battle here with GTs and Hypercars here basically struggling to find somewhere on track where they can be and not having 4 wheels off, as that's Cameron Barker. Now where's he come from, because he looks like he's shot his way straight up the order in GT. There you see just in front was the Bentley GT, that was Chris Brew having a Hypercar all in the back of him on the Aston Martin and GT on the inside there. Things are getting dicey already, and this is what you get when you have multi-class racing on a short track. Not like the start that we had last week. We saw quite big gaps between both the Hypercar and the GTs. Here at Watkins Glen, we've run just over 10 laps, sorry, just over 9 laps, I was coming with, and then we go 3 wide through what looks to be the boot section of Watkins Glen there, and that could have gone all wrong there, but luckily all 3 drivers there, all focused, and they saw what they needed, where they needed to be, and they kept it off one another.
So Barker and Zalewski had a nice wheel-to-wheel battle to the braking zone there for the hairpin, and just about kept it out of each other's door mirrors at that point. Luca Gray, 8.5 seconds now, he stretches the gap to Dan Kirby. This is him settling into a rhythm now, having gone through the traffic much better than Dan Kirby. Brian Hall is now 25 seconds adrift of the Toyota. That just shows you how much time you lose in the traffic as we watch Stian Gjorvard, who's about to have Bob Robertson, I think that is, in the other Toyota, try to lap him. Obviously, Bob Robertson with a much faster car, but he's also got to time when he makes the overtake. You can't just slice it up the inside and hope the Ferrari's going to dart aside. You actually have to set up the move. The onus is on the faster car to overtake the slower car. The encouragement is that the slower car will stay on the racing line to be predictable, and then the faster car has to drive around the outside of it. There is Ross Smith in the Koenigsegg-Jesko, moving his way further forward. Ross Smith, who is 4th in class at the moment in the Hypercar AM category, so he's still going to be knocking on the door of things, and he's closing up on the battle between Zalewski and Barker. He goes right round the outside of Barker in the BMW, trying to stay out of trouble, almost drops it completely off the road. In fact, we have got a car off the road. Now, who is that that's gone there? I couldn't quite make out who that was that was slipping out of positions, but certainly we have a car that's in trouble. Yellow in Sector 2s. And I wish we could be, I think it's Jerry Chen. It's Jerry Chen in the Hypercar Rams, who was running in 3rd place. The flying Kiwi Lamborghini has binned it.
It is Jerry Chen. Unfortunately, he has there, and he's dropping places like a stone. He's got going again through Sector 2 now. Where's he gone off? He's gone now off through the chute by the looks of it. And that's quite unfortunate because he was in the thick of things there. Oh, and we've got another one in the wall as well. That looked like Robertson there on the wall. Yes, it was. The second of the Toyotas has backed up into the wall somehow. Has he been tagged into a spin?
I think you're absolutely right. Bob Robertson, unfortunately, in the Toyota, just going a little bit over the apron. We did see them trying to negotiate their way past a GT, so I wonder if they just tripped over the GT on the way past, but certainly a couple of unusual moments there. Now, it looks like Van Bersekum has lost out to Alexander Model on that lap. So Model, the Ferrari driver, having a bit of a moment. Stian Gjorvard almost spun into the pit lane coming out of the final turn as the back end of the car got very loose indeed there. Vinicius Gonçalves has dropped right out of the hunt of the GT victory. He's over a minute behind Bru now, so Gonçalves obviously having his problems and recovering. But yeah, fascinating stuff so far. And just to give you an idea, on lap 12 of 61, where we are exactly 1/6 of the way through this race now, as 10 racing laps have been completed out of the 60 racing laps, and now it's going to be 11 as Luca Gray comes through. But Jason Whitehead is almost a minute back in just the first 10 laps. That is the difference between Gray and Whitehead over the terms of this race so far. But the Toyota has been working its way through the traffic very efficiently indeed, as we watch Brandon Gant in the Nissan Nismo, and he is hunting down Barker in the BMW.
Now, I think we may have found the GT that was involved in that incident. Gonçalves has had a very slow Sector 2 time, almost 20-ish seconds, actually making that 20 or 30 seconds actually slower through Sector 2. So we may have found the GT car that was involved with Robertson. And if I'm not mistaken, I did see a puff of smoke actually come up the back end of Robertson's car coming down the front straight away. So it'll be interesting to keep an eye on Robertson's car to see if there are any changes to that as well. Because it looks like he's lost a heat positions. As we still have this fantastic battle as the Aston Martin advantage there runs wide. Almost pushed off by the Corvette by the looks of it. Of course, this is the battle for the GT lead, and we've got 3 cars going for it. And here comes Cameron Barker. He knows what's on the line here, but I've just noticed that Chris Bru has escaped up the road pretty rapidly and has not. He's got this happening in the wing mirror. He has nothing to worry about. It's Peter Meyer here, working his way in 6th position overall in class. He, of course, is in GT AM, a fair few kilometres back from this fantastic battle we have up front. But Chris Bru is certainly, well, I can imagine he's certainly keeping a close eye on his rearview mirror just to see if anyone is going to sneak up behind him. But 4.4-ish seconds is quite a margin for Chris already. So that Bentley Continental already stretching its legs there. As here's Stian in 5th position overall in GT AM. Again, he's a bit further back from the field. War changes position by the looks of it in GT. Brandon Gant has just got up into 3rd in that category as Cameron Barker drops down to 4th position now. I wonder if he's had a little bit of off-track excursion somewhere. Really slow. The yellows were no, not quite. So it looks like that was a move made on track somewhere, but it looks like that position is changed once again as Cameron Barker goes back up into 3rd position, while George Angelidis is biding his time behind these two, and he's waiting for these two to trip over one another as Ross Smith there, 3rd now overall in Hypercar AM in the 068. And here's Koenigsegg Jesko. He's across the line there now, coming up on what looks to be slower traffic, or is that another Jesko? Actually, no, it is another Jesko in front of him. This is not a battle for position, though. This is a car that's much further down the order. As here is Benchka in his Jesko as well. He's 4th overall in that rather stunning livery. It looks like it's got the Swedish touch, as I would say. I think the only thing missing from it is a Volvo badge. As we have a yellow in Sector 2. And the 4th place car of Matthew Overton has stopped, by the looks of it, in the outer loop. So he may have had a little bit of an off-track excursion and may lose a position out here because he's got Jason White all over the back of him. Eric Monet has gone through. And, well, unfortunately, Matthew Overton there got it a little bit wrong. But now is probably the time to get things wrong. You don't want to get things wrong on lap number 60, do you, Jake?
No, indeed. He's got a little bit of time to recover it, at least, which I suppose is the only compensation he's really got at this point. There goes Bru through in position. Jamie Sadecki is now 2nd overall in the GT, so he's managed to find his way past Aidan Coleman, who we just saw go through. There's Craig Dans in the Reptile Bentley. Still trying to keep up with the cars up the road from them. So some good battles all the way around as we are on lap 14 of the 60 scheduled laps. So obviously 61 is what it shows on the graphic, but that includes the formation lap, of course. So Stephen Miller is being hunted down by Craig Dans in the Reptile Bentley. So they go down to the bus stop once again, and we watch to see how Brian Hall is getting on. A very quiet race for him in the Hall Brothers Lamborghini. The SCV12 is still running very solidly in 3rd position. Not really gaining a lot of ground on Dan Kirby, but also not losing out to Ben Bowman and Jason Whitehead. So the Hypercar Pro category very much spaced out, and obviously from that moment onwards it's still pretty intriguing. But Eric Moyne is back in the lead of Hypercar AM. He leads over Overton, and both of those cars are actually in front of Jason Whitehead on the road. As we now look at Gant. Brandon Gatt in the Nismo having a bit of a race of it as he continues on. As we now look, he's actually just been lapped by the race leader. So Luca Gray in the Toyota, well clear and stretching out a little bit of a gap on the cars behind. So Luca Gray goes into what is now lap 16, although officially it is lap 15. Chris Brew leading the way in GT, 7 seconds clear of the likes of Coleman and Barker, but Zalechki is now currently the man who is second overall in the GTs. If you look back out of the other side of the bus stop, there is Zalechki. So Chris Brew's lead in GT is not actually that big.
And it's interesting to know now, looking at lap times at the moment, it seems to be when the hypercars get mixed up with the GTs, they start losing 2 seconds a lap compared to what they can do when they have clean track in front of them. So looking at the best laps that both Luca Gray and Daniel Kirby have done, they're in the 132s, with Kirby being the faster of the two cars. They're 132.201. However, with the backmarker traffic in the way, the GT cars, they're running 134.2s and 134.8s. So that is really impeding them at the moment, but of course that is something they have to consider when multi-class racing is on track. When you've got GT cars on track with you, of course it will slow you down. It is playing certainly in the hands of Luca Gray at the moment, because he's certainly getting the advantage here, because he's managed to stretch out his lead now by almost 9 seconds to the good of Dan Kirby at the moment. I'm going to follow what we have on the timing screens, not what we have on the left-hand side, because it looks to be, it's fluctuating ever so slightly there between the two. But here's Jerry Chen. He had a little bit of an off-track excursion not too long ago, but now in recovery mode at the moment. He's currently fifth in class at the moment. He's just gone past Benchka by the looks of it as well to take 4th position overall in Hypercar AM. So that's another position gain for him. Now he's in hot pursuit of 3rd. That of course will be Ross Smith, who is in a battle of his own, because it looks like Eric Moynier is taking the lead in Hypercar AM from Matthew Overton, who also had an off-track excursion not too long ago, but has managed to work his way back up into 2nd. And Ross Smith are all separated by 1.2 seconds to the good of one another. So the battle is certainly on here for the lead in Hypercar AM. Now let's have a look at the sector times here for all 3 of these drivers here who are battling it out in class. There's Brian Hall again in the Hall Brothers Lamborghini. Has to be one of the better finished cars here we have in the past 2 race weekends. Again, bringing the Starry Night paint scheme back. Of course, the Vincent van Gogh painting. That's about as far as my art knowledge goes.
On into the barriers. Into the barriers. We've had the Mustang has gone clean into the barriers there. It was trying to get out of the way of Messrs. Benchka and Chen, and that's straight into the barriers there for one of the Mustangs. I'm not entirely sure which of the Mustangs that was. I couldn't quite make out which one it was as we watched Bob Robertson. Bob Robertson going through there in the old and slow Toyota. Just trying to figure out which of the cars that was. I think that might have been Tom Nacella that just went into the barriers there on the final turn.
Yes, it was. Indeed, it was Tom Nacella there, who unfortunately got spooked by the 2 hypercars that were behind him. No fault of his own, just trying to get out of the way, but unfortunately just mistimed it ever so slightly and unfortunately hit the barrier. So, of course, then we have damage on at the moment, so he's going to have to be very careful with that car now, because that is certainly going to affect his car all over the track here. So Tom Nacella there, unfortunately getting it a little bit wrong there on track. We'll have to keep a close eye on him to see what he can do now. Back to the battle in Hypercar AM, because Matthew Overton has now taken the lead in that class in the 174, as we see Cameron Barker in the M6 GT3 all over the back of what looked to be, I think that was the C8 of Aidan Coleman by the looks of it. Yes, it would be, because those 2 are less than a 10th of a second separated, 2 of them. And then of course it's the battle for 2nd overall in GT at the moment, the 027 and 76. So that's a battle as well to keep a close eye on as 2 here. Now where are those 2 on track? As we said, they are not there. They are slightly further down here. They're 14th and 15th overall, and they're currently working their way through Sector 2 as we speak. Just trying to pull up here Cameron Barker's time We can see what the sector times are between these two here. It's actually quicker through sector 1 for Cameron Barker. Was the BMW with 24.813 compared to a 25.1. However, through sector 2, it looks like Barker loses a little bit of time. And there, of course, is Tom Lasella. Jerry Chen is in the pit lane. This is the first driver into the pit lane. Actually saying that Brendan Gadd is also in the pit lane as well. However, Jerry Chen just did come in fractions of a second earlier. So he's the first driver to tuck into the pit lane. Now, this is going to be a very interesting strategy. And are we going to see now fellow drivers around him in their categories now start to peel in with 18 laps completed so far here in our 60-lap event here at the Glen.
This is where I need my former pit lane expert in VWSC, Troy Uyan. I really needed him to get back in the box with us. Hopefully he'll be back before the end of the season, but he would be telling us all about the fuel strategies here and the tyre strategies, about who is likely to be taking around. But looking at the fact that we are approaching the 1/3 distance, that does sort of make sense in terms of the pit lane strategies, because you're going to have a few drivers who are out of position, trying to get themselves back into a position and trying to avoid too much traffic. Jerry Chen obviously coming out of the pits after his pit stop, and Brandon Gadd likewise, just deciding to clear the traffic essentially to give themselves a chance to fight their way back in. I can tell you that the race leaders, Luca Gray in the Toyota, has now managed to lap everybody around the course up to Guillermo Benchka in the Koenigsegg. So Guillermo Benchka is now currently 8th overall, don't forget. So there's still a long way to go here at the Glen. We've obviously gone on to lap 18 in the officialdom. Obviously it's lap 19, but that includes the formation lap at the start. Here's Eric Moynet in the Curie Mistral, who finds himself down in 3rd position now for the moment as the battle continues. Up in front, you can see Overton battling away there with Ross Smith, and there's Moynet getting past Ross Smith, who has had a bit of a moment there. So Ross Smith down the order again into 3rd position as the Nunjesco is coming straight back at him. So a great duel this for the victory in Hypercar. It really is looking like it's going to be these 3 cars all the way through. Just a little bit of breathing space for Overton, having gone through the traffic just slightly more efficiently than Moynet and Smith. And it looks like Zalewski is going to come into the pits. So the leader in GTAM is pit lane bound.
Just before that, we saw a sailor come into the pit lane as well, and he was the reason we had a brief yellow flag in sector 3 as well. He was slow through the heel section. Now, I wonder if that's from damage that he sustained earlier on. Now, the team are going to work on that and try and have that fixed before they set him out once again. But of course, the race leader from GTAM is in the pit lane. This will relinquish the lead to Tom Lane, who just takes the lead now. Alexander Model would take 2nd overall, with the 098 taking 3rd position. And you saw how long that took there. That's how much of a lead Zalewski actually made in the opening stages of his stint here. And he's now just tumbled down to 5th overall. Here's Chris Brew. He leads the GT category overall after a fierce battle about 10 laps ago. And it looks like pit lane is getting rather busy at the moment. And here is where you don't want to get anything wrong, because we've seen this before. Penalties in the pit stop have cost drivers some valuable points finishes here. And you see how busy pit lane is. Is that Jerry Chen still in the pit lane? No, it can't be. He must be back out. There has to be one of the other Lamborghinis. Unless that is... No, it's not him, because he's circulating out the moment right now. But a lot of cars in their pit boxes here. As Jake said, we're at the 1/3 of the race completed. Things are starting to, well, strategy starting to play out here. And let's see who has the right strategy. Who can make it now to the end, or will we see some drivers have to come in when we elapse 2/3 of the race done? Things are going to get interesting. The strategies all to be played out here. As now we'll settle into the groove of pit stops underway. So, of course, we'll see a lot of movement, a lot of new leaders as well taking over the various categories. Luca Gray still leads, still owes us a pit stop, as does Brian Hall in the 44. Dan Kirby is currently in the pit lane as well. Now it showed as 3rd overall in the Hypercar category. Just ahead of Ben Borman, who is also in the pit lane by the looks of it. Or is he back out? No, is he up to speed?
Yeah, he's back out of the pits after a pit stop.
Is up to speed. Yes, he is.
Yeah, Borman getting himself back up to speed after a pit stop. It's a confusing graphic, but the P after the drivers there, it indicates the time they spent in the pit lane. As Eric Moynet continues down the back straight in the Curie Mistral Lamborghini, he is the current leader in Hypercar As Ross Smith decides to make a pit stop. This actually makes a lot of sense to come in at this point for Dan Kirby, because obviously he wasn't really gaining a lot of ground on Luca Gray. He's got to be hoping that Luca will go a little bit further into the race. Kirby can get out into clear traffic and a bit of clean air and try to gain a little bit of time back. But Gray has deliberately decided to counteract it, and he's come in a lap later than Dan Kirby. So obviously a little bit of an undercut, overcut scenario there for Kirby and Gray. Gray reacting instantly to Kirby's pit stop by deciding to cover it off just a lap later. I wonder what Brian Hall and the Hall Brothers Lamborghini is going to do, because they were a clear third place at the time of the pit stops. We're currently watching Tom Lane, who is the provisional leader of the GT AMS, because of course Jamie Sadecki is going to be pretty quick as he works his way back into position through the pit stop regime. And Jerry Chen, 5th position at the moment in the Hypercar AM category, still trying to make up as much progress as he possibly can. But Brian Hall has stayed out, interestingly, as is that Kirby. Well, Brian Hall's in the pits, Luca Gray is in the pits as well, but Dan Kirby's gone through. Now, that tells me that Luca Gray is going a little bit heavier on the fuel this time than Dan Kirby is. Either that or Kirby elected not to change tyres, whereas Luca Gray is changing tyres. Now, that's interesting, because if Luca Gray can push it a little bit further into the race with fresher tyres, then Kirby is actually going to be compromised a little bit in terms of his raw speed.
But at the same time, this could really hinder him as well, because if he's now switching up the strategy from what he might have come into the race thinking what he could do, this might push him, will push him further now in this sort of second half of the race here, or better yet, let's say the second third of the race here. If he gets to the point where Dan Kirby comes in, let's say 2 laps earlier, yes, he might have the jump on him, but he might lose that time again in the pit lane. Let's see how this one pans out here, as the pit stop cycle seems to be somewhat completed now. We have our last few takers in. Tom Lane is coming now from the leading GTM. I think actually Alexander Model owes us a pit stop as well in the 098, as does the 099 too. As Peter Meyer has come in the pit lane from 3rd overall. Chris Brew appears to have gone in and out of the pit lane, because now Aidan Coleman leads the GT category. As we're looking at that Bentley right now, let's see, has Aidan Coleman come into the pit lane yet? I don't think he has. I think he's one of the last few drivers who owes us a pit stop here. Does the race leader now in GT. And has he got a slower time on our screens here? No, Aidan Coleman still owes us a pit stop, so he's also on a different strategy compared to his rivals in the GT category. So let's see how that pans out for him. Is he also going the route of more fuel at the start of the race with maybe fresher tyres compared to the other drivers? Or is he just trying to really stretch out as much as he can and get as much as he can from the car in these opening stages of the race, and see if he can get the overcut, or better yet the undercut, on his rivals in GT? Because now with this added advantage of being on track for just a little bit longer compared to his rivals, he may be able to get the jump here before the end of our race here at the Glen. Here's Bob Robertson in the second, as he said, of the Toyota GR010s. The very vibrant red hue on the car there, with the contrasting gold yellowish rims there on each corner. Here is Ben Borman. He's 3rd overall in the 018 Koenigsegg Jesko here this weekend. Great to see a number of drivers swap over into the Koenigsegg Jesko, to see the car is proven to be popular already before the very first race that we've had with them. As Alexander Model is into the pit lane, as is the 099. Tom Lane is in the pit lane still, by the looks of it. Or is he out? No, he's not. He's completed his outlap. He is back out on track. Well, that seemed to be quite long there for Tom Lane to be in the pit lane. It seems to be the last lot of our drivers to come in have come in to serve them. I think it's only Aidan Coleman now who owes us a pit stop. I think pretty much the majority of the field have now done their first pit stop. So we'll let things settle in here, and then we can see who is where and who is leading what category in around 2 to 3 laps. Here is Jerry Chen. Again, in catch-up mode at the moment. He's 5th overall in class. He was climbing his way up the order before that pit stop. Drop back from Eric Monet, Ross Smith and Matthew Overton, with the top 3 in the Hypercar AM category.
You picked up on a very important point there, actually, looking at the pit stops. Looking at the fact that pretty much everybody, except for Aidan Coleman, has made their first pit stop. This does suggest that it's a 2 pit stop race rather than a 1 pit stop race, but you make a very good point. You know, who's going to make the bid to make tyres early or leave fuel a little bit later? Maybe that's why Dan Kirby was initially not able to keep up with Luca Gray. Did Luca Gray fuel light and then decide obviously to fuel heavy for the second half of the race? And is that why there's such a difference between the two of them? Because Kirby, we know, likes to have a fairly balanced car. He doesn't want to push harder than he has to. As in comes Aidan Coleman, the last car essentially from the leaders of the 4 classes to make a pit stop, just leaving it a little bit later than some of the others out there on the course. That's going to be interesting when they come past the pits, as Coleman is going to drop back. There goes Brew, and I think Barker's going to get through. So is Gant. So Barker and Gant have both got through. I think this is, again, a long fuel stop for Coleman, so he's going to be in the pits for considerably longer than his counterparts, but I think he's got a good strategy underneath him. I think he's going to try and go considerably further into the race on this fuel tank, so he might end up only taking tyres at the second pit stop. These are the equations that you have to try and evaluate as you come through, as Gray sets the new fastest lap of the race, a 1:32.089 on lap 24 of 60, or 25 of 61 if you're counting the formation lap. Jerry Chen having a really exciting run up at the sharp end of the field, but he's obviously got a lot of time to make up after his earlier trip up with Vinicius Gonçalves in the GTs. Kirby versus Gray, still hard to tell who's actually going to come out on top here, because Kirby has decided to go for the shorter stint, whereas Gray has definitely gone longer stint in terms of the fuel. Now, the roles could end up being reversed by the time we get to the second stop, Chris, but again, this will all come down to how Kirby manages the traffic with a lighter car, but with older tyres.
Yeah, so the strategies are really going to play a key factor in this race now as well. Are we going to start seeing now a 2-stopper or a 3-stopper? We'll have to wait and see when you get to the latter stages of the race. Going back to Aidan Coleman's one here now, he seemed to really stretch it out there. However, he did not get the gap that he wanted, because he's dropped down to 4th position overall, so he's lost 3 positions at the line when he's come in. Of course, now with a heavier car, he's got a lot more work to do if he's taken more fuel on board with him. If he's taken fresher tyres, of course, those tyres are going to get munched up a lot faster due to the weight on board because of all that fuel. So let's see how this sort of second stint of the race now pans out here, as we see the Aston Martin advantage on the inside of the Corvette C8, although looks like the Corvette will retain position. Now, that was, of course, when we're looking at Jason Whitehead, who's 8th overall in the Koenigsegg Jesko. Just want to have a look. That would be the battle between, by the looks of it, Jamie Zalewski, who is, of course, who was the leader in GT-AM, and actually he's retaken the lead in GT-AM after the pit stop cycle has been concluded. And that was him battling it out, by the looks of it, with Aidan Coleman, although that did not look like Aidan Coleman's car, at least from the back there, but it's showing them those two as in close proximity, because now the Jamie Zalewski car is actually latching onto the back of sorry, that's Brandon Gann actually latching on the back of Cameron Barker. That, of course, will be the battle now for second position on track in GT. And you just saw it at a shot there going down into the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. It's actually Gonçalves and Zalewski battling it out there before, previously going through turn 1 on lap number 26 there for these two. And it looks like Zalewski is actually going quite significantly slower. Sorry, not Zalewski. Apologies. Zalewski's in the Aston Martin. That was Gonçalves is actually going a little bit slower in comparison to the GT-AM driver. He's currently shown a 6th overall in class and a lap behind Chris Brew, who is shown as the leader in the 0.31. Just to see now how much slower is Gonçalves in comparison to Jamie Zalewski on that lap, because he did look like he lost significant time, especially through sector 2. Now, there were some faster cars coming through. There were a few of the Hypercars working their way through that time round, but I don't think that would be significant enough to drop him that far back. And of course, those two aren't really battling for position anywhere on track, because it's showing that Gonçalves is quite a few laps now back from Zalewski. It's not just Zalewski trying to get through traffic there to see if he can sort of maintain his lead in GTM, because it's showing now how far is he ahead of his closest rival. Now in second is Brian Van Busken, who is 17th overall. Now for Zalewski, he's actually got a car in between himself and Brian at the moment, and that of course is the C8 of Aidan Coleman. who just dropped back at the early stages there of our pit, sorry, actually the latter stages of our first pit stop cycle here at the Glen. We've got the 29th car overall currently in the pit lane. That's Tom Nacella. Now, unfortunately, we did see him hit the wall not too long ago. Now, it's not showing that the car is retired. It's just in the pit lane for an extended amount of time. Of course, that will be due to contact with the wall earlier on when he was stuck up behind him with two of the hypercars that were battling for position. And unfortunately for Tom Nacella, just got it all wrong and unfortunately hit the wall, and now is in the pit lane trying to sort out that damage.
Wouldn't surprise me at all if that is the end of Tom Nacella's race. I haven't seen anything in the chat box to allude to that. But there could well be one or two drivers in discussion about that, of course. We'll have a look in the CMS Racing Discord channel to see if anybody has mentioned it. Brandon Gant trying to close up on Cameron Barker, as these two still battling away for second in the GT class overall. And Brandon Gant ever consistent as ever. Tom Nacella, the only driver not circulating at the moment, as has already been intimated by Chris, as obviously everybody else is still running. Yellow sector 3. So somebody must have dropped it on the approach to the start-finish straight once again. We're on lap 27 out of 60. Oh, and it's Bob Robertson. Bob Robertson in the old and slow Toyota has had a spin there out of the final turn, and he's going to come straight into the pits. So he's clearly picked up damage there in the Toyota GR010. A very easy place to lose it, but unfortunately it's all gone wrong for Robertson.
It looked as well like it seemed to be Jason White also may have had an issue as well, as into the pit lane has come Matthew Overton too. Now, were these three in close proximity, and is this the result as to why we have two cars in the pit lane? They seem to be going all the way through by the looks of it. We didn't see any penalties being pinged up anywhere, as Jason Whitehead has gone in and out of the pit lane. No, never mind, they've actually both gone into their pit boxes. That was quite an interesting turn of events, as we did not quite see what exactly happened. We saw the tail end of it there, but looking at the track map, try to get that one right this time, it looked like those two may have come in contact, and possibly another car was involved as well. I didn't quite catch who the the third car involved in that incident was, as Luca Gray has recently done a personal best. Now, when exactly did he do that? Because he's done a 1:31.990. He's the first to go into the 1:31s. And he did that on the previous lap as well. So somehow, despite there being a lot of traffic in front of him, he's managed to do purple. He's managed to do a purple time around the track. Now, he went purple on sector 2 on lap number 24, so 5 laps ago. However, on that lap, he was only green through both the sectors, as we had a brief yellow flag there. Sector 3 again is showing that the number 7, the 7th place car overall, is slow. That's Jason Whitehead again. However, it's not showing us that the yellow flag is waved. Now, it looks like the car might be stationary, at least according to our track map. It's got going again, and that is Jason Whitehead who's had an issue. He's getting back up to speed now through turn number 9. But what has happened to Jason Whitehead? This is the second time in a row. Yes, he's got a problem because he's gone red through sector 1 and sector 2. Now, is this a result of contact that was earlier on? Because we said that there was 3 cars potentially involved in a sort of mix-up between some of the hypercars. We saw 2 of them come in, a third one did not. I noticed that Jason Whitehead was slow through sector 3 2 laps ago, and now on the previous lap he was slow again through sector 3. He's at a 1:04.320. He's 32 seconds off the pace there, so he certainly had an incident through that third sector, and that was just towards the heel of the boot at turn 8.
And you may not have spotted it, but the former race leader in Hypercar and Matthew Overton has picked up a penalty. Now, I would not at all be surprised if that was for speeding in pit road. But Matthew Overton, the former race leader in Hypercar Am, I'm afraid he's taking a penalty this time as Brandon Gant gets out of the way and tactically allows the GT car of, I think that's Jamie Zulechki, wasn't it, to overtake him. They're not battling with each other in class, because obviously they're in the Pro and Am classes respectfully. So I wonder if that was tactical from Brandon Gant, just to let Zulechki go in front of him, so maybe he can get into the slipstream and start to make progress as Brian van Boysikum is going to bring the Ferrari into the pits this lap. So Brian van Boysikum, the Ferrari, will come down pit road, and he has handed over third place to the sister car of Alexander Model. So an interesting challenge there, but Kirby still in front of Luca Gray in the lead of the race in the hypercar, and we are at the half distance mark now, bang on halfway, lap 31 of 61, or lap 30 of 60 if you will. So this is the halfway point in the Virtual World Sports Car Championships visit to Watkins Glen in New York City State. Jake Sanson and Chris Milbourne with you with a halfway point. Dan Kirby leading Luca Gray after the first round of pit stops. Ben Borman in third place in the hypercar category from Brian Hall and Jason Whitehead. In the AM category for hypercar, it is Eric Moynier in front of Ross Smith and Guillermo Bechka. And then Jerry Chen Overton, who is going to have to come back into the pits for a penalty, I'm afraid. And then Bob Robertson. In GT, it is Brew that leads the way. Chris Brew out in front of Cameron Barker and Brandon Gant. So then in fourth place it is Aidan Coleman, taking a lot longer in the pits than some of his counterparts. Georgian Davidis and Vinicius Gonçalves in the top six. And then we have Jamie Zadecki in front of Tom Lane, Alexander Model, Sian Goffard, and then it is Stephen Miller in front of Craig Dance. Just the one car that we're aware of that is not yet, so I should say still not circulating after it came to a stop earlier, is Tom Nacella, who struck the wall at the final turn in the Mustang. Everybody else is still going strong, and Dan Kirby is about to go into lap 32, which is of course exactly the half distance mark under racing conditions here in the Virtual World Sports Car Championship.
And Jerry Chen seemed to have a slight issue and may have got it all wrong going through the final corner here. That's of course turn 11, because he was in a very slow sector 3 time, and his little timing blip there stopped just before the start finish line here, and he wasn't in the pit lane. So unfortunately Jerry Chen losing it there. We didn't quite catch exactly what happened, but a very slow third sector time of 1:02.069. And the good thing is he's back up to speed. However, he has lost significant time to his counterparts. Now, looking at Brian's pit stop, now this comes at a very interesting time, because of course he was kind of in line with the others when they came into the pit lane. He appears to come in a little bit earlier. So have the team there switched up their strategy for something a little bit different? Now, I'm also monitoring another car here. No, it's Tom Nacella, unfortunately, that is out, because of course that is the sole car that isn't currently circulating at the moment, because Brian van Boysikum is on track again. Now, again, very interesting that he'd come in now sort of at the halfway point, because he's going to have to owe us at least one more pit stop. But now, is he thinking, are we going to get something that we may not have expected? Is he going to see if he can get the undercut on some of the other drivers? Although it has dropped him a lap down from his competitors in the GT AM category, although he might be biding his time here to see if he can kind of get a splash and dash towards the end and try and get that undercut on the rest of the GTMs here. We'll see how that plays out as we have Brian Hall here going around the outside of the Reptile Racing Bentley Continental GT. Makes quick work of it in the Lamborghini SC V12. In the, again, the Starry Night there by Vincent Van Gogh. A beautiful livery on that car. But I'm going to say it's not the best one, because I'm quite infatuated by that IKEA one. But, well, the Koenigsegg Jeske is running, and there it was just at the front of the shop there, just ahead of the Ferrari. Sorry, Jake, you know me. I have a fascination with Swedish cars here. The make I want to see, unfortunately, they don't make racing cars anymore. The closest we'll get in real life is the Geely, but at least seeing Swedish cars race is always something I love seeing. And it looks like, is Jason Whitehead out? Yes, he is. Jason Whitehead is out of the race. He's the first official DNF on our screen. Now, a couple of laps ago, we noticed that he had some issues, especially through Sector 3. He got it wrong not once, but twice through the heel and through turn 8 and 9, which is the heel section of the boot. But Jason Whitehead is out, Jake.
Yeah, that's very dramatic from Jason Whitehead. I'm not entirely sure what it is that's put him out. I'm going to try and figure out if he's had a bit of an issue there, or at least what it is that's caused the problems. But certainly some big difficulties, I'm afraid, for Jason Whitehead. Normally what tends to happen after a retirement there is we'll usually end up figuring out what the situation is. He'll share it with us in the stream. But certainly it's a big disappointment as far as he's concerned. So we're going to have to figure out what the situation is later on, I'm afraid, for Jason Whitehead. We're beyond half distance now, so time for the drivers to get a little bit more closer to the action in the latter stages. And what about the gaps between the cars out on the circuit? That's obviously going to be the next interesting port of call as Cameron Barker watches as around the outside, blasting through, comes one. Oh, Luca Gray getting tucked in there with Brandon Gant. And Brandon Gant got spat into the wall there by a very eager Luca Gray to try and pop up between Gant and Robertson. So Luca Gray, well, that's an interesting one. Now, if Luca Gray has forced a car into the wall, I wonder if something could come back to bite him on that one. But I was going to pick up on the fact that Luca Gray is only 5 seconds down the road from Dan Kirby in the Bugatti Bolide, so obviously things are starting to get a little bit heated. Brian Hall is within a minute of the race leader Dan Kirby, then Ben Borman, who's about 9 seconds back, 10 seconds back. Eric Moyne, who leads the Hypercar Am category, we're watching him here in the lead of Hypercar Am, is 5th overall now as a result of the retirement of Jason Whitehead, who is tumbling down the timesheets. Ross Smith is 2nd in Hypercar Am and is currently 6th overall in front of Guillermo Benchka. And then we have Jerry Chen. Ben Borman has dropped back because he's had a penalty. Meanwhile, there is he's had a pit stop, I should say, not a penalty. Stian Gjovard, however, has had a penalty. So the Ferrari driver is now going to have to come into the pits and take a penalty. Ben Borman is coming to the pits. It's Jerry Chen gets past Benchka.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off there, Jake, but Benchka actually may have had a problem through Sector 2. Now, he was slow through the toe part of the boot, and that was the reason we had 2 brief yellow flags being waved there in Sector 2. He looks like he's got it back up to speed. Now, didn't quite catch what exactly happened to that car, but unfortunately, now he's got... he is now 8th place overall. He's lost out to Jerry Chen, who's now taken over that position, and Matthew Overton is in close proximity as well to that car. And I'm just trying to have a look at what Jason Whitehead's laps looked like before that DNF. He was only a couple of seconds off the pace, maybe about four-ish seconds off of our leaders in Hypercar, but compared to his rivals in the Hypercar Am category, he was more or less on the pace, but unfortunately on lap number 31 he had to come in and DNF the car. So really unfortunate there for Jason Whitehead. So we'll try and get some information of what exactly happened and why he's come in. Nothing is pinged up through yet. But the race continues on here, but it's starting to get very interesting here, and some different strategies being played out now as well. Jerry Chen is coming to the pit lane just after the halfway mark. Now that would be completely off strategy unless he is also going to try and fill that car up all the way, have a heavier car at the halfway-ish point, and try go all the way to the end and burn off all that fuel. It's going to be a very interesting strategy to play out, though, or he's going to have to do a quick splash and dash before the end of the race. Let's see how this pans out, because it seems to be a few of the drivers are now starting to switch up their strategies ever so slightly, because that was quite a short stint there for at least Ben Borman and Jerry Chen.
So we are watching Brian Hall on our screens, but yeah, an interesting moment there for Benchka, Overton and Chen. That constant battle for 3rd position in Hypercar Am. I think that's going to take a few more twists and turns before the race is out, as there goes Luca Gray around the outside of Peter Meyer, and also one of the flying Kiwi Lambos. I've got a feeling that's Jerry Chen going through around the outside. And then Stephen Miller is just behind Peter Meyer on the road. But of course, Stephen Miller is still in front of the Porsche driver, as Miller and Dans are both ahead of Peter Meyer, who is just ticking off laps at the moment. We're on lap 35 out of 60, so we've got full 25 racing laps still remaining at the end of this one. And there is Aidan Coleman, the man who led earlier on in the GT category. He still has plenty of time to get himself back into position, looking at where he is on the road by comparison to his rivals out there. Aidan Coleman is only about 15 seconds back from... sorry, no, my apologies. He's only about 5 seconds back from Jamie Zadecki, who is having this monumental battle with Cameron Barker for 2nd on the road in GT, although Zadecki, of course, is the leader in GT Am category. They're starting a terrific dogfight. Ben Borman going past our position in the Jesko once again, having been lapped
by Luca Gray. So Dan Kirby has now managed to lap everybody up to Ross Smith in the Noon Racing Yesco. So Ben Borman, who is currently 6th overall. It's interesting and going to be interesting to see when Dan Kirby makes his second pit stop and how long that's going to be by comparison to Luca Gray. The gap between them is only about 1.4 seconds according to the timing sheet I've got in front of me. So Luca Gray has caught right up to Dan Kirby, and it seems as though the Toyota just happens to be the fastest car on track in general. Either that or Dan Kirby's had some problems as Bruce Hopkins gets out of the way of the battling pair of drivers there. I think that was Jamie Zadecki going through in the lead of the GT. No, my apologies. No, that's one of the Yescos battling away there. That's Ben Borman. I think he's having a bit of a battle there with Ross Smith. So some good battles there. But Eugene Mazur in the Pazuzu Porsche continuing on his way, still ticking over nicely with only 2 retirements up to this point, and that is Tom Lasella and Jason Whitehead, with all the other 27 cars still running.
Interestingly enough, we now have another car into the pit lane. Gonzalez is into the pit lane in the Corvette C8, so varying strategies all over the place. And I think I have an answer to why Dan Kirby lost a lot of time to Luca Gray, is because he came on a gaggle of back marker cars there, a lot of them in the GT category. Now they seem to be battling it out now with no one really in front of them. We've got the 5th place car overall, which should now be Ross Smith, excuse me, because Ben Borman is a bit further back from the top 4 in Hypercar. But they've only got one car to deal with as Luca Gray and Dan Kirby, and it looks like they're sticking together as they have that Ross Smith, the Noon Racing Koenigsegg Yesco, just in front of them. And this is going to be a tough man to pass as well, because of course Ross Smith doesn't want to go a lap down. He is the last car on the lead lap, and he's actually coming up on back market traffic himself as well now through sector 2. But this is going to be a very interesting battle now between the two of them. Can Luca Gray find a way through with down at less than 0.2 of a second separating them? It is now a 1/10 of a second separating both Daniel Kirby and Luca Gray. Can Luca find a way on the inside through sector 2? Because this is where the Toyota performs much better in comparison to the Bugatti Bolide. But unfortunately, sector 3 is coming up, and that's where Luca Gray lost time in qualifying and in the race so far as well. However, when they come across the line this time around, no, it looks like Dan Kirby has the upper hand through that second sector as he manages to stay ahead. However, Luca Gray was fractions of a second faster. He was 0.003 of a second faster through that second sector compared to that Bugatti, but unfortunately cannot find a way past Kirby this time round, and these back markers are now really impeding it. They've both found a way past Ross Smith, who unfortunately now goes a lap down, but the battle is certainly on now for the lead of the race between Daniel Kirby and Luca Gray, the two battling it out in the hypercar category by, again, 1/10 of a second separating the two of them. They're across the line this time round to complete lap number 38. We're now officially on lap number 39. This is getting tense already up front. We've elapsed half race distance already, but there's still so much time left on the clock for our top two as they race their way now through and into sector 2 here for the 39th time. This time round going the way of Daniel Kirby, 21.5 compared to a 22.1 of Luca Gray. So losing 0.6 of a second that time around through that first sector. That's going to really hurt him through this second sector. But if he can nail it down like he has been throughout the race so far.
Gray's in front of Kirby. He's managed to get through. You can just see it as they come past opposition. So Gray has made the bid there on Dan Kirby in the Bugatti Bolide, and he has managed to storm his way through in the Toyota. So we have a new leader. Luca Gray has spent all of that time trying to catch up and repass Dan Kirby, and he has now managed to do it, Chris. So it has been a dramatic change, and we got 22 laps of racing at the end of this one. So Luca Gray, with the second round of pit stops imminent, has managed to get himself into the lead of the race at the perfect time.
And he managed again to do it through sector 2. So as I said before at the top of the show, it seems to be the Toyota really gels well with that second sector, but unfortunately loses a lot of time through sector 1 and sector 3. So there are a lot more straights in those two sectors, sector 3 and sector 1. As of course the back straight towards the bus stop and the outer loop enters sector 2 but exits sector 1, interesting enough. However, it seems to be that Toyota really starts to get in the groove in that second sector. And as Jake said, we now have a new race leader by 1.5 seconds to the good so far. Luca Gray is back out in front. Now we have another taker into the pit lane, the 17th place car overall, Jamie Zaleczki. Stardust Autosports Aston Martin Vantage V8, the leader in GTM, or who was the leader in GTM before he came into pit lane. Now that goes the way of Tom Lane, who now retakes the lead in GTM. And now, as Jake said, we've got around 20 to 21 laps remaining. I think 22 laps actually remaining for the GTs at least here. We're going to start seeing a few more pit stops underway shortly, or well, I'm kind of thinking here some might leave it a little bit later than others. We're going to see a few come in for a quick splash and dash, which is going to impede them. However, with drivers in front of them that are going to come in now and get their refuel the car to basically fill up the tank as much as they can, they're going to have the heavier car on track. So the ones that are doing these splash and dash strategies may actually get the upper hand here and may get that undercut that they're looking for when they switched up their strategies earlier on this race. Benchka is into the pit lane as well from 3rd overall in the Hypercar AM category.
I'm fairly sure you've nailed this in terms of the pit stop strategies here, Chris, because I think there could be quite a few drivers leaving it late. Dan Kirby, having just lost the lead, though, as I say that, is into the pits. So Dan Kirby opting to make his pit stop, having just lost the lead of the race to Luca Gray. So there is Guillaume Benchka, and coming down the pit lane, you should just be able to see in the background, Dan Kirby has brought the Bugatti Bolide into the pit lane as well. So there he is, kind of halfway down the pit lane. So again, this is going to need a reactionary pit stop from Luca Gray. The question is Dan Kirby going to be on a longer stint for this one to try and work his way further forward? And what's Luca Gray going to do? This does kind of suggest that, unfortunately, Dan Kirby and the Bugatti Bolide was never quite going to be the winning package on pure pace, because it seems as though Luca Gray, despite having a longer pit stop last time, has been able to catch and pass before the second round of pit stops. So let's say that Kirby has a longer stop this time and Gray has a shorter stop this time. And obviously Luca Gray is going to have a longer advantage than he had done previously. So Kirby is heading his way out of pit road, and he will rejoin. We see Benchka getting back out onto the circuit in the Jesko. But obviously Kirby rejoins in 3rd position at the moment behind Brian Hall. But it's a big headache as far as Dan Kirby and the CMS Pro team were concerned. They were all hoping that this was going to be on. Jerry Chen spun. Jerry Chen spins it and loses the car. It's a big moment there for Jerry Chen in the Flying Kiwi Lamborghini. Manages to catch it, but that is just so easily done. You can see just how hard the drivers are working. The back end overtakes the front.
Yeah, and looking at the Daniel Kirby car came into the pit lane last. They came in on lap number 20. They've come in on lap number 40. So that car seems to be going at least 19 to 20 laps. Now, at the moment, we have between 19 and 20 laps to go towards the end of the race, which means Daniel Kirby on lap number 61 is going to need the lightest foot possible if he wants to go all the way on fuel mileage here. Luca Gray is coming, interesting enough. Now, this is different. Especially for him, because he's kind of stretched out a little bit longer. He didn't come in exactly the lap after Dan Kirby. He came in 2 laps afterwards. So Luca Gray, Daniel Kirby here on similar strategies. However, I think on... I don't want to say on fuel mileage just yet. We're going to have to wait to that very last lap of the race. But I think on fuel mileage, Luca Gray will have the upper hand here. Dan Kirby obviously has put a full tank of fuel in there, so he's good to go towards the end. But if we're looking at 19 to 20-ish laps per stint, Daniel Kirby's going to have to be extremely light-footed on the very last lap of the race series. We see Brian Hall into the pit lane here for the second time as well. He is 3rd overall. I don't think he'll lose the position out to Ben Borman, because, of course, he went a lap down earlier on to both Luca Gray and Daniel Kirby. There's a pit stop underway there, presumably getting a full tank of fuel, possibly some fresh tyres as well, to get him all the way through to the end. So this looks like this race is going to be a 2-stopper for the majority of the field. There are some that we're going to have to do a 3-stopper, because of course we saw some sort of pit off sequence. coming in about 5 to 6 laps after they originally came in for the first time. They're going to have to definitely do a splash and dash with sort of 5-6 laps to go before the end of the race. It'll be interesting how that pays out and to see if they can actually get the undercut. As you said, Zalewski has been in and out of the pit lane. Stephen Miller looks like he's in the pit lane as well. This is Eric Monet in the pit lane that we're looking at right now. Of course, the leader in Hypercar AM. There's one of the other Aston Martin Vantage V8s that have come in as well. Now, who's that that's come in? That is George Angelidis is in the pit lane as well by the looks of it. Yes, he's just come into the pit lane. The 22nd car over was Bruce Hopkins has come in, and Ed Jones has come into the pit lane as well here on this lap. For a lot of these drivers, this will be their last pit stop, but for a few of them that have done it before, I think they might owe us another pit stop, Jake. I think it's going to have to be a 3-stopper for some of our drivers here today.
Well, it could be very interesting. Certainly in the GTs, it's unclear as to who's going to have the luck of the draw from the pit stop strategies, as George Angelidis has brought the HPD Acura into the pit lane. So Coleman, Barker and Brew are all going to get through, but Coleman and Barker have yet to make a pit stop. It is touch and go as to whether some teams may need a third stop. You might have a point there, as Moyne has obviously conceded the lead of the Hypercar AM category now to Ross Smith, as Moyne in the Acurie Mistral car has been into the pits and I think is now leaving or has already left the pits on that one. In fact, I just saw the Acurie Mistral Lamborghini going up the hill. So Moyne recovering in second in Hypercar AM after his pit stop, but Overton is still third from Chen, and Benchka with Bob Robertson just about a lap away from the pace. And there is Luca Gray, having got himself into the lead. He has definitely done the business to counteract the position and get himself back into the lead. So responsive from Luca Gray in the Toyota, not taking any undue risks and certainly not pressuring himself any more than he has to. But certainly for Luca Gray and Dan Kirby, that is 2 pit stops apiece. And we're just waiting for a handful of cars to go for a second stop. But yeah, Bob Robertson rejoins nearly in front of the leader, Luca Gray. Toyota nearly took out Toyota. Goodness me. That was a bit of a scary moment there for Bob Robertson. He wasn't looking to his left to see who was coming towards him, and he very nearly washed out the race leader. Luca Gray is one lucky boy.
Ross Smith also had an incident in sector 2 as well on that lap, as going slow through the boot section here at the Glen. The good news is that he's got it going again. Out of the pit lane now comes 13th overall. That's Tom Lane. He's just come into the pit lane to do his second pit stop. I think he should be good to go towards the end of the race here. As you said, Luca Gray is the race leader, but he almost lost the lead there due to no fault of his own, just the car being in the wrong place at the wrong time for him. But very quick, Luca Gray saw that immediately, found a way past pretty much as soon as he can. You could just see that Robertson there is now into the pit lane, so maybe things are not all right with that car. There's Ross Smith is also into the pit lane as well, another car that had a bit of an issue on the previous lap. Here's Matthew Overton. He's second overall in class in the Hypercar AM category behind Eric Monet, ahead of Ross Smith, who's currently in the pit lane. So we don't have to worry about anything too much. No pressure for him for the time being. He's just got to apply the pressure on the back of Eric Monet. However, there is quite a gap between the two of them as he puts 2 wheels off into the grass. Good thing he didn't put all 4 off, because they could have gone completely wrong that time round. Here's Ben Borman, third overall in the Koenigsegg Jesko. In the 018. Now he's made his way past Brian Hall, because of course Brian was in the pit lane, but I think Ben Borman actually owes us a pit stop and is now, well, he's actually less than a lap behind our race leaders, but of course he's going to lose a lot of time behind, a lot of time in the pit lane, but he's really stretching it out here. He was one of the drivers, I think, that actually came in for a second time already. If we have a look at his lap times, we should see a longer time in sector 3 at some point. So he last came in around lap 34 by the looks of it. And if he came in earlier, no, he did not. It was his only pit stop at lap 34. If you look at the timings there, he's got one sector time there of 1 minute 06.030. That means he's only come into the pit lane once. Has Ben Borman found the optimal strategy here?
Yeah, well observed, actually. So Ben Borman running in third position. Clearly, he's got to time it right. I mean, when did he come in? He must have come in about lap 27, 28. So he's left it very, very late. If he manages to get through this on one pit stop, that would be absolutely astonishing. I can't see how it's possible. Surely he's going to need a quick splash and dash before the end of the race. But we are on lap 44 of 60, or 45 out of 61, depending on how you choose to look at it. And Gray versus Kirby, the gap has opened up to 16 seconds. It's looking pretty good for the Toyota driver. As long as he dodges the flotsam and jetsam, should be able to keep himself in position. Ben Borman, it's showing up on our screens that he's only done one pit stop, so that's brave for Borman, who's either brave or flaming moronic, because he's going to be running the gauntlet as to whether or not he can get that car to the end of the race without costing himself that third place. Brian Hall is there in fourth position, ready to pounce. In Hypercar Am, it's Eric Moyne, who is having a solid run of it from Overton and Smith, then Chen and Benchka. After that last transgression, Robertson is now showing as DNF, so I'm afraid it is game over for the second of the Toyotas. Coleman is leading the way in the GT category in front of Barker and Brew. Angelidis in fourth place in front of Gant and Gonsalves. And JB Zalechki still trying to get an overall GT podium in front of Alexander Model and Tom Lane from Ben van Boysegem, Sjan Gjovard and Craig Dans, who's finishing up. Gjovard is in the pit lane, and you can see there that Bob Robertson in the Toyota unfortunately has parked it for the day. And I think it's a very tricky one here in the current circumstances for that man, Bob Robertson. Hasn't exactly gone according to plan, and I'm afraid it is now game over.
Yeah, unfortunately, it looked like he got it wrong through turn 8 and 9, where that's been quite a hot spot actually for a number of drivers here. We've seen a number of incidents actually happen through there, and on the previous lap he was going slowly through that sector, so I think he may have hit the wall quite significantly, and that may be the reason as to why he DNF'd. We have no official reason, we're just purely speculating here at the moment, but I think that it might be the reason. He said he was slow through that sector. We carry on here on lap number 46. Here's Brian Hall in the Hall Brothers Racing Lamborghini SCV12, and here again is our race leader, Luca Gray, the pole sitter from, well, 46 laps ago. He lost the lap momentarily to Daniel Kirby, sat behind him for a number of laps, but has retaken the lead, and he's now starting to stretch out that lead as well by 17 seconds almost to the good, although in real time it's showing us now 18.3 seconds as he's working his way through the back markers here, through some of the GT cars onto one of the fastest corners here on the track, because despite it being a sequence of corners that go right, left, right, you can actually take that, depending on what car you're in, at full speed. And I can imagine Luca Gray is pushing it to the absolute limit through that corner, although he has to be kind of careful as he gets towards the closing stages of this race here. Because of course he's going to try and do a two-stop strategy. He's going to have to start saving on fuel somewhere as well. Yellow in sector 2. Now who's had an incident here? The 9th place car overall, that's Benchka, has an issue going through out of the bus stop and into the entrance of the outer loop at turn 5. Now he is going slow. It appears to be that he may be offline as well, but for Benchka, he's got it all wrong through the bus stop. Again, another hot ticket place that we've seen a few instances happen as Ben Borman is coming to the pit lane here for the second time, and what I presume to be would be actually the final time of the race here as well. He's really stretching out this pit window here at the Glen, and I think he's going to try and get the undercut. The only thing is he's going to need an undercut of at least a lap if he wants to get take the win here away from Luca Gray, Daniel Kirby and Brian Hall, because of course they're your top 3 in Hypercar, which of course Ben Borman is in that category as well. And I think we've only got 4 cars left in the Hypercar category, because of course Jason Whitehead unfortunately out earlier on due to an issue we haven't seen pop up on the screen just yet, but unfortunately that car is out. Now it looks like Ben Borman is in the pit lane. I thought he had an issue because his sector time came up incredibly slow there in sector 3, but of course the explanation is that he is currently in the pit lane. Here's Aidan Coleman, race leader in the GT category, and for some reason on our screen here it's showing GT ahead of GT at the moment. Of course, Aidan Coleman tried to get the undercut up there in the first cycle of pit stops, momentarily took the lead by around 20-ish seconds in the category, but unfortunately did not pay off and lost out to both Cameron Barker and Chris Brew. So of course we're going to wait to see him come into the pit lane again. He's left it quite a while too, and I presume he's going to do the same thing here as well. He's going to try and have a 2-stopper here in comparison to some of the others that will have to come in and do a splash and dash. If they don't come in, I'm going to be very, very surprised here. Matthew Overton is into the pit lane here from 2nd overall in Hypercar Am and the Dark Thunder Racing Lamborghini in to do his second pit stop as well here in the race. Lap 48 now underway for our race leaders. Luca Gray and Daniel Kirby are our leaders here in Hypercar. 17.9 seconds is the gap up front, and it looks like Luca Gray has a bit of empty space in front of him, so he's good to go here. Nothing to worry about any back markers to at the moment to impede him, with his closest rival being now 3 corners behind him. Luca Gray setting himself up comfortably here for a race win here at the Glen.
So this is a very impressive run from Luca Gray. In terms of the overall championship fight, Dan Kirby will be quite happy with second position. That will certainly put him into good stead in terms of the points scored. Won't be worried too much about how this has affected things, and will certainly keep things neat and tidy from the current perspective. But obviously there is still a long way to go. We can't really count the chickens before they've hatched here. There's a lot of opportunities to get this wrong around this particular circuit. You never know really what's coming around the bend, and we've seen that a few times already as drivers have had to take some grave avoiding action to try and exacerbate some of the problems with the competitors trying to come through. But it is still Gray from Kirby and Hall up at the front end of the field, and Dan Kirby is losing time rather than gaining it. So a very difficult situation throughout still presiding, but we're definitely going to see some interesting continuations of the races as the battles continue here at the Glen. And still just waiting on these last couple of battles to fizzle out in GTM, because Lane has now come through in a relatively strong position around the course, but he's there in 3rd place. And again, in terms of the long-term championship gain, Tom Lane can be quite content with 3rd position in relation to Zadecki and Model. Jamie Zadecki is just going to be a very nice result for him to run through. But interestingly now, you'll note that the GT cars are ahead of the GTs. So Jamie Zadecki is actually leading GT outright, which is very impressive indeed for an AM driver.
So that explains why that section of the leaderboard is shown ahead of the GT category. Of course, now 11 laps to go. We're on lap number 50, or at least Luca Gray is on lap number 50 at the moment. Race leader leading by 13.2 seconds, being chased by Dan Kirby, because of course now he's starting to catch some back markers, and he's actually quite in the thick of things as well. Back markers, he's got through quite a few of them. No less than 7, actually more than 7 cars he's actually got to work his way through. But unfortunately for Daniel Kirby, despite him gaining time, with of course Luca Gray having to find his way through, it looks like Daniel Kirby is now fast approaching this group of cars, including some hypercars and GTs, of course. He's going to have to work his way through here, and he's going to lose more time now that Luca Gray has found a way past the 10th place car of Jamin Zulecki of the Stardust Autosports. Aston Martin Vantage V8 has got through. He is now onto the front straight through turn 11 here to start lap number 51. Daniel Kirby has got a lot on his plate at the moment. He's got a lot of cars to make through, got to work his way through, and now it looks like we've got 2 groups of cars. We've got one set that's being led by Jerry Chen, and then we have another group that's being led by Jamie Zulecki. So we've got a good group of cars here that unfortunately Daniel Kirby is going to have to try his hardest to find a way through. We've got some more cars currently in the pit lane by the looks of it. We have, at the moment, Brian, where's Brian at the moment? He was 23rd overall. Yes, he was. He's come in and out of the pit lane to do his 3rd and final pit stop of the race. So he should be good to go towards the end of the race. So not quite a splash and dash that we first predicted. It's more of a splash and 10 laps dash to the checkered flag at the end. But he's going to see if he can get the undercut on the drivers that are in front of him, because of course a lot of the teams in front of him have not done the same sort of strategy that he's done. So he's definitely going to try and find a way through here in the closing stages of our race here at Watkins Glen, as the sun now begins to hang a little bit lower in the sky. It looks like we've got some more shadows on track, especially towards the back parts of the final corners of the track as well. You can see the shade from all the trees now looming over, of course. Now this is going to cause a little bit of a, not an issue, but let's say it gives the drivers a little bit more of a challenge, because of course the tree lining there is a bit further away from the track and they're quite sporadically placed out. So of course there's going to be like blips of sunshine, then shade, sunshine, shade, sunshine, shade, because of course their eyes are going to have to focus on that, and they're going to have to make sure that they continue to focus on what's ahead of them and not lose out here, because of course with 10 laps remaining, it's all to play for here. We still have plenty of time on the clock, and as Jake said, we can't count our chickens until they've hatched.
I am absolutely stunned that we've only had 3 retirements from this race so far, considering how little room there is for mistakes to be made and how tight it is. It shows you just how incredible the driving standards are in Virtual World Sports Car Championship, that not so much flotsam and jetsam and absolute carnage and chaos has befallen. Only Bob Roberson, Jason Whitehead in the Storm Rider Koenigsegg Jesko, and Tom Lasella, after his big hefty clout in the final corner barriers, they're the only ones really who have had retirements or even come close to retirements, as Jerry Chen is now in pit road, so he hands back 3rd position in the Hypercar and category to Matthew Overton. But Luca Gray has now left everybody up to the back of Brian Hall in terms of the race overall. So Brian Hall, who is in 3rd place overall. So Luca Gray in the Toyota, just keeping it nice and tidy as we are now on lap 52 out of 61. 9 laps remaining, of course, at the end of this one. But Luca Gray has stretched out that gap to Kirby of 35 seconds. It gives you a bit of an indication as to just how hard the work Luca Gray has been pulling to give himself that lead. But still a fantastic effort from the man in 2nd place, Dan Kirby, and certainly in terms of championship ramifications, Bugatti Bolide is in the best shape from this particular race. There's Tom Lane in the Manta Squid Mustang. So Tom Lane is currently 17th overall and is looking at 3rd place in the category behind Jamie Zalewski and Alexander Mödel. Oh, that was a close run thing, as Tom Lane had to just wait a moment for the Lamborghini SCV12 to charge through. Now that looks to me like one of the, I couldn't quite make out who that was, I do apologize. It was certainly, I think that might have been Matthew Overton actually in the Lamborghini, as Luca Gray charges his way onto lap 53 out of 61 or lap 52 out of 60, again depending on which your version of the race you're counting. It's lap 53 for those who count the formation lap 52 for those who don't, as Luca Gray in the Toyota GR010 having a perfect run out here in the 1st position, as we watch Peter Meyer, who's having a little bit more fun and games in his bid to try and get clear of Ed Jones in the McLaren. Only a few cars behind them in the race now. Brian Van Boyzegum had his problems earlier on. Bruce Hopkins, Vinicius Gonçalves, and Eugene Mazur. Everybody else is still going fairly solidly in their normal rhythm of racing. But Luca Gray and Dan Kirby, 1 and 2, and separated by about half a minute.
I'm just having a look at the pit stops for Jamie Zalewski, the leader in GT, and of course the leader overall in GT as well. Now he seems to be having stints of around 17 to 18 laps, so he last came in on lap number 35. I have a feeling we're going to see him come into the pit lane shortly, because we've almost run 20-ish laps from when he last came in. So he must be running on fumes at some point here, or that Aston Martin V8, the Vantage, must have fantastic fuel economy, because he's not coming after 18 laps either, but he definitely owes us another pit stop. But if we compare it to where Alex Modell is, now of course he does have quite a gap between his closest rival. He's actually got 5 cars in between himself and Alex Modell. Modell last came in on lap number 40, so he came in 5 laps after Jamie Zalewski came in. So he should be good to go towards the end of the race there, because it looks like he's doing sort of 20-lap stints here, because he first came in on lap 21, and then he came in again at lap 40, so he should be able to push it all the way to the end. If not, we'll see him come in on lap number 60. So I think for Jamie Zalewski, he may have it in the bag as long as he has a scot-free race. And saying that, it looked like he just ran wide through turn 1 there, did Zalewski. Just looking at the bottom of our pictures there. So can he go all the way to the end? I'm predicting he won't. I'm predicting Alexander Modell may be able to. However, he's going to have to find a way past 5 cars and potentially an entire lap. And that's how far back Alex Modell is in comparison to the leading Jamie Zalewski in class. And actually saying that, how far back is he? No, he's not a lap back. He's around 50-ish seconds back from Jamie Zalewski. So he needs a literal splash and dash to be in contention for that race victory. Further up the field, of course, I think a few Luca Gray and Daniel Kirby will both have to come into the pit lane at least one more time for that quick splash and dash but let's see how far they can get there, because Luca Gray may be able to get it all the way to lap 61 on a 2-stopper. But I do believe Daniel Kirby will have to come in at least once. Here is Eric Bonet, the leader in Hypercar AM. He's come in and done 2 pit stops. I believe he may have to come in as well and do at least a very brief pit stop. There's Luca Gray, of course, our race leader in the leading Toyota GR010, and he looks like he's really pushing it through some of these corners. He's going to have to be careful soon enough, because of course the car is getting lighter here with less fuel on board, but he's going to have to start really thinking about it now as well. When does fuel management kick in? When does he start saving fuel as well? Because of course the last thing you want to do is hit lap 61 and all of a sudden you've got an empty tank. We've got a yellow flag in sector 2. Can't quite pinpoint who it is. Ooh, 25th overall is shown as slow. That's Bruce Hopkins, who is slow out of turn 6 by the looks of it.
Kirby just passed him. He was facing in the wrong direction, unfortunately, Bruce Hopkins. So Dan Kirby was able to pass Bruce Hopkins' spinning car. Now, who's that Dan Kirby has just flashed past? That is a damaged Vinicius Gonçalves. So Vinicius Gonçalves, unfortunately, in the GT Pro car, the Corvette seems to be hobbling back to the pits. It's always in the last couple of laps that drivers start to drop away. Interesting, we talk about the 3rd pit stop. You were mentioning it earlier, Chris. There are a handful of drivers that have made 3rd stops. Only Ben Borman, Ross Smith, and Jerry Chen have made 3 pit stops. Everybody else has made 2 pit stops, other than Brian Van Boyzicum, who has also made 3, but I have a feeling one of those may have been for damage. But certainly, towards the latter stages, if Luca Gray and Dan Kirby can go all the way on only 2 stops, that is very impressive indeed. There might just be a need for a last splash and dash before the end. We're not entirely sure whether it will go that way or not, as Craig Dans is currently running just in 6th position in category, 20th overall, I should say, and he's only half a second in front of Ed Jones in the McLaren. So that is for position, as Aidan Coleman is running a very solid race in 3rd position, and he's tucked up behind Chris Brew, and this is for 2nd place in GT Pro. Still amazing that it comes down to this, but full credit so far going to Jamie Zadecki, who is in front of Cameron Barker, who leads the GT Pro class. And so GTM for once is in front of GT Pro, as Aidan Coleman is really starting to hustle Chris Brew for 2nd place. This could go down to the wire with 5 laps remaining at the end of this one.
So Brandon Gann has been in and done his splash and dash in his Nismo GTR. Looking at others as well, I presume we have some more in now. We noticed that Gonçalves was slow through sector 3. Now, interesting enough, Bruce Hopkins is now out of the race by the looks of it. Now, they were 24th and 25th position respectively. Now, I wonder if those two had to come in together, because they were both slow through sector 2 and sector 3 and were somewhat in close proximity as well. So unfortunately, I think that car is out of Bruce Hopkins due to damage. It'll be interesting to know what Gonçalves could do, because he's continued on. It doesn't seem to be that he's off the pace as such, although his last lap was a 2:06. Of course, that is due to the spin, but he's working his way now through sector 3 at the moment and seems to be somewhat up to speed. So the damage that he must have sustained must be rather minimal at the moment. So that's good news for Gonçalves. Unfortunately, bad news for Bruce Hopkins, because of course the last thing you want to do is be out with 5 laps to go essentially. But we're keeping a close eye now on the pit lane to see who's going to come in and do a quick splash and dash. I'm just keeping a close eye on the entrance of the pit lane to see if I see a quick glimpse of anyone hopping in there pretty much immediately, because of course we're looking out for drivers such as Luca Gray, Daniel Kirby, Brian Hall as well. As Jake already mentioned, Ben Borman has done his 3rd pit stop, so he's definitely good to go towards the end of the race. But it's the other drivers that we're going to have to keep an eye on here, and I can imagine a lot of drivers now are starting to consider, I need to work on fuel mileage, I need to work on fuel management, I've got to get the economy that I need to be a little bit light-footed somewhere, but I can't be too easy on the accelerator, because I don't want to lose the time that I've gained already. For example, Jamie Zalecki has gained a significant amount of time on Alexander Mordell, but with Mordell doing a different strategy, it looks like he might be. And it looks to be, is that on the GT car? No, that's where the Lamborghini is. That yes, it is. That's getting in the thick of things there. That's in the Hypercar AM category. Oh, and he's got off as well in the background through the bus stop. And unfortunately, now who's that that's gone right off there through the corner? That's the 13th place car overall. That is, it's Aidan Coleman that's being shown off track.
It's devastating for Aidan Coleman trying to go for the victory in GT Pro this time. But yes, it was Aidan Coleman dropping it behind Chris Prue. So close, those two, all the way through this race. And with only 4 laps remaining, Aidan Coleman dropping it now. I think he is still going, but obviously a big moment there for Aidan Coleman. And that is, well, his car is actually stopped out on the circuit. Bruce Hopkins recently retiring. So we're hoping that Aidan Coleman is not going to join him on the sidelines. He has got going, having lost 4 seconds. But there, oh no, there is the yes go. That's a yes go.
And that was Ross Smith.
That's Ross Smith dropping out of 3rd place in the Hypercar Am.
Now, Jake, I want to ask you a question. If you run out of fuel, do you DNF? I presume you would, right?
You do indeed. Yeah, you absolutely do indeed. So
let's have a look at where Ross Smith is. So we see it now. Pit lane is getting quite busy here at the moment. We've got the 12th place car in at the moment. Jamie Zalewski's come in. So he is indeed doing a 3rd pit stop. I thought this was coming. So he's going to be very careful. He's going to need to ensure that this is definitely a splash and dash car. But Ross Smith, now when did Ross Smith last come in to the pit lane? Now can we see, is it fuel? He came in on lap 42. So no,
I think it was a crash. I think it was a crash at the bus stop, you know, because that car was in the wall.
Right.
So Ross Smith the car was nose in to the wall. So big drama for Ross Smith. And of course, Ross is one of those kind of drivers that will join us a little bit later on, I'm sure, and let us know what happened. But I would not at all be surprised if things have got a little bit too heated there for Ross Smith. And potentially he may have either tripped over somebody else, or somebody else has pushed it over the limit, whatever it is. But it's disaster either way. And I'm afraid Ross Smith, it was looking pretty perfect for a podium finish in Hypercar Am there. With so painful, with 4 laps to go, he's out of the race. That couldn't be any more. It couldn't be any more aggravating, considering how tough it's been for Ross Smith. I mean, he was helping us to get the broadcast going. He started our broadcast for us, don't forget. And now here he is in his Koenigsegg Jesko, and I'm afraid he has dropped it. We've got 2 laps to go, and it's almost home and dry for Luca Gray.
And it'll be interesting now to see if we have any more takers in the pit lane. As you said, 2 laps to go here. Not a lot of time left on the clock, but a lot of time here to run out of fuel. Oh, and that's another Jesko getting it all wrong there, through and out of the boot. That looked to be...
I think that was Borman. Wasn't that Ben Borman?
It was. Now, he wasn't in close proximity to the Ferrari because that was kind of chasing him with Gjordvard. But it just looks like Borman got it just completely wrong through that sector. And luckily enough for him, he did not hit any of the walls. So he's kept it nice and clean. With a brief yellow in Sector 3, and I presume that actually might have been for him there. And that is the reason as to why he was gone off. Ross Smith, interestingly enough, is not shown as DNF anymore. He's shown as in the pit lane. So whatever issue he had, the team have managed to fix it. So that's a great job there from the team there to get that car going again. Granted, he's going to be out of contention now for a podium finishing position, but no, now it's just ticked over back that he's DNF'd. Although, yeah, unfortunately, it looked like he was rolling his way through the pit lane.
Do you know what? That's going to be because they've looked at how long it's going to take to repair possibly a suspension or a push rod or something. Clearly something has gone in wrong, and looking at how many minutes it's going to take to repair that car, it's clearly going to be a little bit longer than it is to get to the end of the race. So the race would already have wrapped up by that point. That's the only reason I can think that Ross Smith would try and get the car going again and get it back into pit lane, is if they can repair the car and he can at least take the flag. But I'm afraid that does not appear to be possible either, as Dan Kirby is going to go into his 61st and final lap, or 60th and final lap, as he is a good 48 seconds back from Luca Gray. But Luca Gray is going to come through to take the victory, as we look at Stian Hjorvard, who's there in 4th position in the GTM category. It was great while it lasted for Jamie Zalewski, but he had to make that splash and dash. So the GTM car winner is not going to win GT overall. That would have been a fabulous result for Jamie Zadecki and the crew. But even so, a fabulous performance. And Luca Gray is going to come through to take the checkered flag after a stunning effort at the Glen. He's been absolutely mighty all the way through. I'd love to pick him up as he comes through to finish up. So let's see. Hopefully we can get a look at Luca Gray as he comes through to finish off his magnificent race. And he will come through down the main straight very shortly. But Luca Gray is going to be our victor in fantastic fashion at the Glen. The checkered flag is coming out now as Luca Gray will come through. There's a brilliant white flag battle coming in the final turn, but the class leaders as Luca Gray across the line for the checkered flag. Luca Gray takes the win at Watkins Glen here in VWSC. There he is, brilliant run from the Toyota. Victory is his, and what a stern effort. It looked as though he was never really going to lose out.
Yeah, it was in that brief moment where we saw Daniel Kirby get through, wasn't it? Where we saw maybe a shimmer that he may not have taken the overall victory. But honestly, it's been a stellar race from Luca Gray. He hasn't put a foot wrong anywhere because it was a close call once or twice. But incredibly enough for Luca Gray, he's managed to keep his head cool behind the wheel at Toyota, and a well-deserved victory here at the Glen. In the Hypercar AM category, it will be Eric Bonet, currently looking for where he is on track at the moment. The number 5 car is currently circulating his way through the exit of Sector 2 now, just entering the toe of the boot into Sector 3 here for the final time. And then, of course, we're looking for where our GT drivers are, because Chris Brew comes across the line in second position in GT. And that's a well-deserved victory. Second place there as well. I think Aidan Coleman was just tucked in behind there. What could have been, though, for Aidan Coleman, unfortunately, it just did not work out for him when he was off through the bus stop. But looking out for Eric Bonet, who's now currently working his way through turn 10 here for the final time. He said he would take the overall victory in the Hypercar AM category. So more cars now working their way through the final corner to collect the checkered flag after quite an exhausting race here at the Glen. 60 laps, or 61 plus the formation lap here. But successfully completed 61 laps here at the Glen, relatively scot-free. You can see Jamie Zadecki there at the bottom of the screen there doing donuts. He's happy with his victory. Eric Bonet there as well at the top of our screen there doing donuts as well. A great way to the end of the race, and well-deserved as well.
Yeah, wonderful finish here to the Glen. We knew that this was going to be a fabulous addition to the calendar, and I'm very glad we were able to put on such a fantastic race battle. Only 5 cars in the end failing to finish. That of Tom Lasella, Jason Whitehead, Bob Roberson and Bruce Hopkins, and Ross Smith, of course, dramatically losing that 3rd position in the Hypercar AM category in the very closing stages. But in Hypercar and overall, it is Luca Gray that takes the victory in front of Dan Kirby and Brian Hall. Ben Borman was 4th overall in front of Eric Moyne, the winner in Hypercar AM, who came home in front of Matthew Overton and Guillermo Benchka, the final runners. Jerry Chen. Ross Smith is classified as 3 laps down, although, of course, he was out of the race. And Cameron Brew in 10th position. Chris Brew, Cameron Barker was, of course, the winner in the GT category. Chris Brew from Aidan Coleman. Jamie Zadecki getting the GT AM category victory as well in front of George Angelidis, Alexander Model and Tom Lane from Brandon Gant and Stian Gjovard. Craig Dans, Ed Jones, Brian Van Boskum, Peter Meyer, Vinicius Gonçalves from Stephen Miller and Eugene Mazur. The retirements, as we know, Tom Lasella, Jason Whitehead, Bob Roberson and Bruce Hopkins in front of Ross Smith. Due to the slight difficulties and the technical problems, we are going to conclude things a little bit more in the mix. But obviously, coming up next, we are going to have the Silverstone round of the championship. That is coming up on the 9th of July. Ironically, a week after the British Grand Prix. And that is going to be fantastic, as the 230 kilometers of Silverstone is going to be very exciting on the 9th of July. We've got 3 weeks after a 2-week break, because next weekend you're just going to have to settle for Grand Prix racing at Silverstone. And then we've got 3 weeks on the trot. The 9th of July, the 230 kilometers of Silverstone. And then following that, we've got the 1 hour of Most Sport from the Virtual World Sports Car Championship, modern hypercars and GTs, followed by the 1 hour of Monza on the 23rd of July. So it's all looking very exciting and very enthusiastic up until that point. It's been an amazing race. Thank you once again, Chris, for joining me. We are going to have just a final opportunity to catch up with our Hypercar winner and our Pro GT winner. So we'll drag them into the mix as well. It has been a fantastic opportunity for them. And they are going to be able to come through for a fabulous victory. So Ross Smith, I think you're going to have to come in here. First of all, Ross Smith, obviously, to help us with our closing down procedure. First of all, Ross, what on earth happened in the run for third position? That was all looking pretty spot on for the Hypercar and podium.
Pretty much everything that could have possibly gone wrong did go wrong, but it was a good fight when it was happening. I had fun with Eric and Matthew and Jerry there for a little bit, but yeah, just tons of complications. I ended up getting single frames per second at times. My headset cut out, and then finally, with a few laps to go, big freeze, and then it just died. And when I came back in, the engine was gone. So, when it rains, it pours. So, I guess we'll try and hopefully get something work together for next time. But yeah, well, let's bring those winners in here.
Indeed. So we'll start with our Hypercar race winner, Luca Gray, who has had a fantastic battle from the sharp end of the field right from the start. Luca, brilliant performance in the Toyota. It looked really, really strong from the get-go. It even looked as though through the pit stop phases, the car just had plenty of get up and go. Just talk us through the race from your perspective. How did it handle out there? How was it looking?
Well, the first stint, I had a crash. I don't know if you caught that on stream or not. I spun by myself coming through the boot. I don't know where it was. I just spun into the wall, got on the grass.
Oh, we did wonder. We did wonder where the time was lost.
That came out like 40 seconds behind, so I had quite a bit of damage. And I think I just had more pace.
So it just looked to us as though, obviously you had a little bit of time to make up, but the Toyota always seemed to have the legs on the Bugatti Bolide. Even in the traffic, you were able to really maximize the opportunities. Was it just a very nimble car to handle, or does this circuit kind of suit your style?
This is my first race, so I don't know. I'm probably just the car, to be honest, because it's much slower on the straights, and there's a lot of fast corners here, which is where this car is quick.
Well, considering this is your first race in VWSC, I think people need to worry, Chris. I think everybody is going to need to watch out for Luca Gray.
True that. So I noticed in qualifying and in the race overall, Sector 1 and Sector 3, you lost a lot of time. And as you just admitted there, the car isn't great when it comes to straights, but when it comes to the corners, the Toyota is really nailed down. But the real question I want to ask you here is how much fuel did you have at the end there? Because I was looking at your strategy, and it looked like you were really stretching there, especially on lap number 61.
I had quite a bit of fuel left. I just didn't want to risk anything. I think I had about 3 or 4 litres, so another lap's worth at least.
Right close to the edge there. Well, look, what a way to make your debut in VWSC, straight out of the blocks with a win. I think everybody's going to need to be quite worried. Is the intention to just do the Hypercars, or are we likely to see you in 1991 Group C as well?
I didn't even know there was.
Well, there
if
is
I have
indeed
time,
two
then
weeks' time. Yeah, 2 weeks' time, the 230 kilometers at Silverstone. How does that one sound?
Sure, I'll do it.
Well, I think the deal is about to get started. Luca, fantastic job, fantastic win, and a great way to start in VWSC. Well done.
Thanks.
Brilliant. Let's bring in our race winner in the GT Pro category, Cameron Barker, doing an absolutely fantastic job over the course of the race. Cameron, that race in GT had so many pendulum swings. Oh my goodness. I mean, how many lead changes were there in GT? Just talk us through the race from your perspective, bringing the BMW home on the top.
Very unexpected, given how the race started. It got that car was not fun to handle around here. I don't know if you saw it on stream, but it was just sliding all over the place. And I think I'll need to watch it back, but I presume the leaders had some issues because did not expect to come home first.
There was not a single car within the GT that had a clean race. Everybody seemed to struggle through the course of proceedings. So you were talking about the handling deficiencies there in the BMW. Was it oversteer, was it understeer, or was it a combination of the two?
It just felt like a boat, to be honest. It was a bit of both, as you say. I think it was just hot. I think we're practiced through the week, kind of cooler track conditions, and it felt good. But coming in today, it didn't feel like it would stick pretty much.
Wow, phenomenal. Chris, any thoughts for our winner in GT, Cameron Barker?
Yeah, so before the race started, he says, "I wish I had done more prep for this. I do not have the BMW in a nice place." So, what would have been the prep that you needed to do? Like you said, the car had like a boat, so I presume that you didn't have a lot of time to kind of get used to the feeling of the car around there. Now, obviously, it's not the same weight as the Bentley. That's more of a boat than say the BMW, which is a bit more agile. But what do you think you could have done more before the start of the race here?
It's just lines around the track. I think, especially in the first part of the race, with the 3 or 4 cars in front of me, you could see them pulling away in the second to third sector where all the corners were. I was kind of just holding on to them down the straight, and I think cleaning those lines up in the second sector might have helped me out. Somehow I
Well,
managed
interesting
to
enough, you had a
find
very
pace towards the end of the race, but yeah.
Fascinating stuff.
it's
Always
interesting you
really
say that because
interesting.
you had a clean race. Sorry, Jake.
Go.
I guess they've got connection issues. Apologies.
It's all right. I was going to say continue on with the point you were going to make.
No, it's just about how clean it was for Cameron. We didn't see him really getting in any tussles. Really, I think there was one point at the very beginning of the race where he's going 3 wide with
Yes.
a hypercar wedged in the middle. You managed to keep it all on track despite saying that it handled like a complete boat. So well done, Cameron Barker. That was a fantastic run to the finish line and a well-deserved victory as well in GT Pro.
Yeah, very good.
Thank you very much.
Terrific stuff. There's one more person that I want to grab a word with before we wrap up, and that is the man who so nearly managed to bring a GT AM car through to the overall victory in GT. It was so close, and had not just been for that final splash and dash, we would be talking to Jamie Zadecki as the GT winner overall, never mind in the AM category. But Jamie Zadecki is our GT AM winner. Jamie, fabulous performance. For once, the PC decided to play ball with you and brought you home to the finish without connection issues, without difficulties. But we so nearly are sat here talking with you as the overall GT winner. I mean, what a brilliant race.
Yeah, hey guys, thanks. It's great to be back up here. I ran quality mixture the whole race, so I think that's what did me in on fuel, and I was just going qualifying laps every lap just to make sure I had a gap to the next AM car. That way, when I did have to come in, I wasn't going to lose the lead. Really wanted that top 10 overall, but a commanding win in GTM still counts in my book.
Absolutely, it does. I mean, considering the fact that, if you had been able to run just 3 to 4 more laps longer on the fuel strategy, you would have beaten Cameron Barker. You would have beaten all the GT cars. I mean, you must be absolutely exhausted.
Well, the car was actually hooked up really well, and the curbs in the bus stop were my friend. I was just throwing the car over it. I'm sure you guys saw a couple times. I was just eating those up and gaining so much time through there.
Oh, it was a joy to watch. You really had a very decent and solid run throughout. Chris, we were keeping an eye on Jamie Sadecki throughout. You must have a couple of interesting points to bring up with him.
Yeah, the main point for me has always been fuel mileage with a lot of the drivers that we had here today. And you had a very interesting strategy as well. You did have to go on that third stop, and you did have to get that last splash and dash there. So you come in, with, I think it was 2 to 3 laps to go. So what was going through your mind then? Because like you said, you were really throwing it around. You were throwing it into every corner, especially at the bus stop. You were doing qualifying lap after qualifying lap. You kept the pace up. You were ahead of the GTs, but the fuel mileage, the strategy there may not have paid off.
Yeah, a little bit, but I don't think I would have had the pace to keep up with those front GT Pro cars had I not run the quality mixture the whole time. So it was a little bit of a trade-off. I knew coming in that I was probably going to be short, but I was just taking a guess on how many laps the Hypercars were going to do. And, like I said, I knew I was going to be short, so I just kept going flat out and made sure I had that gap to the second place GTM car. Right around 50 liters left in my tank, I went, yeah, probably not going to make it. So let's just not even worry about fuel saving. Let's just go. Keep the gap, pull the gap, and keep on trucking.
We liked it. It was a proper great display. So nearly the overall GT winner, but a brilliant GTM victory, Jamie. Congratulations. Great job.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Hope to see you again next race.
I'm sure you will. Yes, indeed. As we mentioned a little earlier on, the next race for the Virtual World Sports Car Championship takes us to the 1991 cars, and it's 2 weeks from this moment, 230 kilometers of Silverstone, and get ready for a busy July because it's going to be 3 weeks back to back. Chris Milbourne, thank you very much indeed again for your company. You're getting into this now, aren't you? I have a feeling we'll be back in 2 weeks for Silverstone.
I certainly am, and let's see. I mean, the timing's a bit awkward for me. I mean, it does go into quite late, but good thing is that they changed the weekends here, and I guess that was a blessing in disguise. We originally used to run, I know this is going to sound very bizarre for some of the listeners out there. Our weekends used to be Thursday. Sorry, wait, it's not Thursday. Now I'm going back 20 odd years.
Friday and Saturday.
Friday,
isn't it?
Saturday. So I would not be able to do this at all if the weekends hadn't changed. So I guess I'm one of the few that said, yes, the weekend change is absolutely incredible here. But no, fantastic racing as always. Lasarthe was absolutely incredible. I'm a huge fan of Watkins Glen, and the racing we had today was absolutely stellar. It was great to see the different fuel strategies being played out, the mix of traffic with a shorter track and everything like that, and how the drivers were able to stick it to them when it needed to be done. And especially with the Hypercar and the GTs, it's been an absolutely incredible race.
It certainly has been. Thank you all very much indeed for tuning in. A massive thanks again on behalf of everybody at Storm Gang Simulations and CMS Racing, the Champions Motorsports. It has been fantastic. From Chris Milbourne, my colleague, from myself, Jake Stanton, and from the likes of Phil Stocks and Ross Smith, who have been running things behind the scenes. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. It's been another cracking race at Watkins Glen. In 2 weeks' time, we go Group C crazy around Silverstone. Hang on to your hats and get a good seat, but you'll only need the edge of it.